at least be background music.
Yeah, a little smooth jazz.
You know, like at the game before they drop the puck, they play the music.
Dennis, you good?
Yep.
Okay, Terry, you all set? Okay. Okay,
Yes.
Councilor Welch.
Motion to recess executive session and reconvene in open session.
Second?
Okay, motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Motion to hire an independent investigation firm in relation to this issue.
Second?
motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oppose?
Aye.
Okay,
Mr. President, it's noted that I am submitting a conflict of interest statement.
okay, thank you. Yep, thank you. And
Motion to seal the executive session minutes pursuant to section 42-46-7 RIGL.
Second?
motion is second to seal the executive session minutes, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, guys. Let's move on to review number 2, review the fiscal year 2022 operating budget.
Motion to review the fiscal year 2022 operating budget.
Second?
Motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Brown.
Thank you. Is there a presentation? Okay, I'll get started. I thought there was a presentation. This upcoming Saturday, we'll start discussion about the upcoming budget. I'll give you some very quick comments about it so that you're familiar with it before the meeting and for the public. The proposed general fund budget for the upcoming year is $75,893,271. And I will write something and get this out on the internet and something to you, so I apologize. That's a $790,000 increase over the prior year. What I'll do is just talk quickly about what's happening on the revenue side of the general fund budget. The town is proposing an increase in taxes of $1,668,000. That represents a 4% increase in the amount that the school department requested last year and a 3% increase over the amount that the town, I'm sorry, the first one was a 4% for the school and then 3% for the town. And what you'll find out as I go through this, the town is asking for a 2% increase on its operating cost and 1% so that we can begin to set aside funding to pay for the 8 firefighters that we hired last year. And in our proposal, and I'll explain it in detail, the first year of the dollars, we're basically saying we're going to set aside the dollars and use the money for roads, basically doing that over a 3-year period. And in the 4th year, we would fund the additional firefighters. But I'll get to that when we get through the budget. Again, for the taxes, it would be $1,668,000. And on the tax rate itself, and I'll go through these a little bit, it would be a 3.75% increase in the tax rate. We use less fund balance in the upcoming budget. It's a decrease of $655,000. And that's due to the fact that we are anticipating seeing increases in the motor vehicle tax, the hotel tax, and the meals tax. These are all 3 areas that were negatively impacted by COVID. Last year, our strategy was to use fund balance to balance out the town's operations. So this year, we see those revenues return. The other big addition to revenue is $1.3 million, which is a capital lease. And that money would be used to purchase 2 new pumpers at the fire department. One is a 4th pumper that we've been discussing a need to add back to the fleet. And one is a replacement of a pumper that's reached the end of its useful life. There's a decrease in transfers from the capital improvement special revenue fund of $113,000. And lastly, a decrease of $172,000 in restricted revenue that we receive from the DFC fund that supports the Middletown Prevention Coalition. So overall, on the town side, we see an increase of about $2.7 million in revenue. The other thing in revenues I'd like to point out, there's a lot of discussion about the American Rescue money that the town will receive over the next 2 years. This is the Biden rescue package. Right now, we're anticipating seeing about $5 million over the next 2 years coming from the federal government. The way that we've budgeted this so far is simply to put it into a special revenue fund. And the reasoning for that is that the regulations are not written and not understood as far as how we can use that money. So right now, that money will go into a special revenue fund, and the council will have to make a decision about how that will be used at a future date. On the school revenue side, they're looking at a $378,000 increase in basic financial aid. There's a funding category called comprehensive literacy, where they're anticipating new money of $404,000. And then there's 3 areas where there's a loss of revenue. $121,000, which is a miscellaneous revenue from government, which I believe is money that came, COVID money that came in last year. $613,000 of capital improvement program, non-recurring revenue. And lastly, $2,143,000, which is non-recurring bond proceeds for their bond projects. So overall, the school department has a decrease in revenue of $2,056,000. And again, if you take the town increase of 2.7 million, the school decrease of roughly 1 million, you get to that $790,000 increase on the revenue side of the equation. I need to get more details for the council on the American Rescue dollars coming from the schools. There is significant amount of money coming to the schools. Their regulations are in better form, but there is a good sum of money that's coming in. And again, most of that money is targeted at programs that will fill the gap for students in the school department as they've lost out on learning opportunities over the past really two years. So Rosemary will have more information about that when we meet. On the expenditure side, there are a number of departments that really have some minor changes. And I'll just, the administrator, finance, assessor, town clerk, support services, planning, the library, senior center, the prevention coalition. There are some minor changes within those departments. But on the larger side, and I'll just run through those, we have a change in the building zoning department, and that's something we'll talk about tonight. We are budgeting for an additional enforcement officer within the building department. That is included in the budget. That department sees an increase of $124,000. It's mostly related to the new hire, as well as increased costs related to part-time building inspectors that we're using to complete the mechanical, plumbing, and electrical inspections in that department. There is a $546,000 increase in the police department. There is one new hire in the police department. In negotiations, there was a decision made to hire a detective sergeant that would be added to the budget this year. And there's also additional costs resulting from the shift from the 12-hour work schedule to the 8-hour work schedule. Lastly, there is a purchase of police cars that's planned. No police cars were purchased last year, so there is an increase in the rate in which we're buying cars proposed for 2021. We talked about the fire department. The big expense in that department, $1,203,000 from year to year, is the cost of purchasing two new pumper trucks for the department. So that is the operating or the capital cost that you see in their budget. I had mentioned earlier that when I talked about the town budget, there was a 2% increase on the operating budget, and then there was another 1% I talked about. When the town negotiated the last fire contract, there was an initiative that was achieved where the town basically we increased staffing and increased minimum manning, 8 firefighters and an additional number of minimum manning hours, going from 6 firemen on shift to 8. And what that allows us to do is puts more firemen on scene when there's a fire before we start beginning our reliance on mutual aid. And more importantly, probably because of the number of runs we make, the amount of business we do, it creates the opportunity to run 2 rescue wagons. So if I was unfortunate and had a heart attack at my house, the first rescue wagon can go there, and then I'll use Peter. If Peter was to fall on his kitchen floor, rather than relying on the city of Newport or Portsmouth or the Navy base to provide that second rescue in a number of cases, now that we have the additional bodies, a second Middletown rescue wagon would be deployed and be able to provide life-saving services to both of us. There is a cost to that, and right now we're able to defer that through a 3-year grant that we were able to obtain. However, at the end of the 3-year period, it will go from a roughly $800,000 a year to 0. So what's being proposed is that if we were to raise taxes by the 1%, be able to pay for, and basically over a 3-year period, build up a base of dollars to fund the firefighters in the 4th year, we would not have the issue of having to fund them in that future period. That would be more catastrophic, because the conversation in 4 years would be, we need to raise $800,000 to keep these firefighters and to retain a level of service where we get people on scene for a fire, or we're able to run that second rescue. What we've proposed is that this year we would basically increase the taxes by 1%. I don't have the exact dollar amount. That would create a certain amount of revenue. We wouldn't build that into the operating budget. We would actually apply that to roads for this year. And then next year, we would have another 1% increment. Then both of those increments would go into roads. We would do the same thing for the 3rd year. And then in the 4th year, we would spend less on roads, but we'd be able to pay for the firefighters. So we're able to resolve, I think, 2 situations. We need to be forward thinking with it, but I think it's a good way to get to a place where we're able to sustain the service levels that we worked so hard to achieve in the prior year. Public Works, and this is that number. There's basically $150,000 for the roads that I was talking about. We've also proposed adding 2 FTEs to that department. I think we're all well aware that we continue to ask for Public Works not only to do projects, but also provide other services in town, as well as trying to increase their responsiveness. So I am proposing that we add 2 full-time bodies to the department. In talking to the Public Works Director, I believe there are some savings we can achieve by removing some of the purchase services that we rely upon right now, and some of the part-time employees. So I think inevitably this is something that will work out to the town's benefit. Lastly, under non-department specific spending, we do increase spending, the appropriation to the school department. The school committee has asked for a 4% increase. That dollar amount is $1,077,160. So you see a non-department specific an increase of $864,000. The difference between those 2 numbers is actually savings that are achieved in our other post-employment benefits account, where we've been successful in not only managing the benefit levels, but also paying down our long-term obligation in that account. So that's $864,000. Lastly, we do see some debt service being retired. So we see a decrease of $266,000. And those are bonds that were passed in November of 2000, back when the school department had bonds for the construction of the science labs at the high school and other projects throughout the district. But it's been 20 years, which is sort of amazing. And again, on the school department side, they have the increase in funding from the town. That's offset by that massive decrease in capital spending. And And most of the increase in the school department goes back towards increases, contractual increases in salaries and benefits. And again, those are numbers that Mrs. Krager can talk about very quickly. And again, I'll get this in a slide and on the internet tomorrow. If you looked at your tax rate in 2020, the residential tax rate was $13.76 residential, $18.21 commercial. The assessor briefed you at the last meeting, the normalized rates would be $12.03 residential, $16.24 commercial. And what we're anticipating is seeing an increase of 3.75%, which would bring the rate to $12.48 or $16.81. For someone with a $400,000 home, they would see roughly an increase of $180 in their taxes. Or if your value of your home for every $100,000 of value, figure $45. So that gives you a ballpark idea of what the fiscal impact is. For Parks and Recreation, we're going to talk a little bit about beach operations tonight. Our focus is to move to the model where we've been looking at a resident family-friendly beach operation. There are no proposed changes in fees right now. And mostly we're adapting to a lot of the operational changes that we've made over the past few years. On the sewer fund, we're looking at a 2% increase in the sewer maintenance rate, which is basically all operating expenses. We are proposing borrowing roughly $1 million to replace the lift station at Marshall Village. I think for the last 20 years, we've talked about replacing that station, but it is something that we want to achieve this year. So that's the major change there. There's also a capital project where we're looking at slip lining or doing some replacement of the force main that goes from the Paradise Pump Station. And that's mostly related to the fact that we're looking at the sidewalks on Purgatory Avenue. It's making certain that that force main is in good shape before we start putting sidewalks on top of it. On the refuse and recycling fund, the last of the enterprise funds, it's basically, there's no change in the rates. There's a little bit of an increase in the tipping fee at Rhode Island Resource Recovery that we've basically worked into the budget. And lastly, we will need to prepare bid documents because our contract with Republic will come up the following year. So there is a $25,000 allowance to hire consultants to help us pull together an RFP. And that's a really, really quick snapshot of the budget. But I think internally, again, I've used the numbers 4,321. The school departments have asked for a 4% increase in the amount of money they're receiving. The town is asking for 3%, 2% is for its normal operations. 1% is in anticipation of the fact that we will need to pay for the additional 8 firefighters and minimum manning a number of years out. So that's where those numbers come from. And again, I think we have a lot of planning to do with the recovery money that's coming from the federal government. There's a lot of money coming into the communities. Earmarks are back at Congress, both with the House and the Senate. So it is an exciting time, and it's a good time for the town of Middletown because we do have a number of projects that we've been talking about that are ready to go in some shape or form. And the staff is motivated to try to move those forward. So we have a meeting Saturday and we'll be ready for that. I'll start pushing out some more information this week, and we will do our best to be transparent. One thing I'll just note, our public affairs officer made some videos over the past couple of weeks with the department heads. Each of the department heads talks about their budget and some of the initiatives that they've been doing. Those will be posted to the website. Sort of our young initiative to be more, to use that video opportunity to share information so people can get updates from there also. So just like to thank everybody for their support and I think this is a good budget proposal. It's a little bit different than what we've done in the past, but the council has made a lot of, not a lot of changes, but we've made changes that I think improve the quality of life in Middletown. And I think the increases that are proposed really support service levels that the community itself desired to be implemented. So be happy to answer any questions. And if I don't have an answer, we can sort them for Saturday.
I would ask that, given the weight of this docket this evening, we'll have those discussions on Saturday. If you have any questions as you go through your dockets, your budgets before Saturday, I would ask that you ask those, to not to expedite the process, but to help us get through that. We can have discussions for months about budgets. So I would ask that we do that, Sean, okay? And colleagues, please.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Number 3, we need to talk about schedules. Number 3 is adoption of fiscal year 2022 budget meetings.
Second.
Motion to adopt fiscal year 2022 budget meetings.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion on these? I think, I don't know. I know that somewhat Saturday, and Sean, I hate to put you on the spot, but Saturday's may change a little bit.
And I thank you. I apologize, but
Yeah, I don't mean to put you on the spot. It's just, I believe some of us would like to attend.
Yep.
So I don't know what the pleasure of the council is. Sean's family is having services for his brother on Saturday morning at 10, I believe, at St. Lucy's.
yes.
So we could probably go an hour and a half. If you choose to attend, I choose to attend. So I think out of respect for Sean and his family, that's just me talking out loud. We can take a break for an hour and resume it at 11:30. And we can have a working lunch.
Yeah, do we have a motion? We need a motion?
You work through lunch all the time.
Does that mean eat my truck? I get it.
No, you don't have to eat your trunk, Vice President. You can eat right. That's funny. Okay, so do we need a motion for that, or do we just,
I think you just motion to recess.
okay, that's what we'll do at the time. Is everyone okay with that?
Yes.
Dennis, Terry, okay with that?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And
Oh.
Mark and the staff, myself are available, to work through as much.
Yep.
Whenever anyone needs help, just.
Yep. And then just to go through it, thank you, Sean, just to go through it, Monday, May 17th meeting from 6 to 7. Hopefully we can get through the heavier ones, the heavier budgets, the school, the police, the fire, the DPW. Those are really the more where the dollars are. Not that the other ones aren't important. I'm not minimizing them. It's just, and again, I've asked Sean to say, hey, look, we don't really need any fancy presentations. Let's get to the meat and potatoes of the increases or decreases in the bottom line and make notes, and then we'll make some decisions as we go along, either as we go along or when we during the public hearings or after the public hearings. Okay, Mr. Santos.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's been recommended that we touch base with the department heads. Do we make an appointment with them first before coming in?
Yeah, I would just let them know you're coming. So I will start sending out an email to each of you with a quick summary of each department. You have the details, and if you want, and I'll talk to the department heads about this. If you want to meet with them, just, it can be as simple as an email, what's going on here, or come in and see them. I don't have a preference, and everybody's willing to work through the problem.
Fine, so that the meeting will not go on and on with questions and questions.
No, and I would recommend, my first thing would be to go through Sean. If you can't get you an answer, if he's busy or whatever, then, certainly you can speak with the department head, but I'm very cautious about that.
Yeah. So maybe start with myself and Mark
Yeah.
and Elaine, the
Okay.
three of us,
Okay.
please.
I don't think we want councils running off, and I'm not saying you wouldn't. I understand what your intentions are. but I don't
just
think,
wanted to know the
no,
facts.
I understand. I just don't want counselors, I don't think it's right counselors run off and go different department heads. You know what I mean? That doesn't set a good precedent, and I don't think it's fair to the department heads. I think it needs to be directed through Sean. And he can direct you accordingly, okay? And don't take that the wrong way, it's just, I'm getting the eye. Okay, all right, so, and then Wednesday, May 19th, 2 days later, we'll have our first public hearing, and then a week later, that following Wednesday, we'll have our second public hearing and potential adoption, scheduled adoption of the budget. If we're not comfortable with it, doesn't mean we have to adopt it that night. We want to make sure everyone's comfortable and has a good understanding and is ready to proceed or not, okay? Budget does not have to be adopted until June 30th. However, we've always kept this schedule. I just want to kind of lay those timeframes out for you so you have a better understanding of what the timelines are. And again, if you're not comfortable with it, we want to make sure everyone's comfortable before we proceed, okay? And that we've gotten the proper public input. Okay, so we have a motion, a second to adopt the fiscal year 2020 budget meetings. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, number 4, public forum. Pursuant to Rule 25 of the Rules of the Council, citizens may address the town on one subject only. Said subject of substantive town business neither discussed during the regular meeting nor related to personnel or job performance. Citizens may speak for no longer than 5 minutes and must either drop off a public participation form or request at town hall or email to both wmarshall@middletownri.com and kclancy@middletownri.com at least 30 minutes prior to the start of the meeting. All items discussed during this session will not be voted upon, no longer than 15 minutes total for the public forum. Do we have any requests to speak? We have no public forum requests. Okay. So let's move on to the consent calendar. Are there any councilors that would like to remove any items off the consent calendar?
Mr. President,
Yes,
could I pull all the minutes, number 5 through 11,
5 through
please?
11. Yes, ma'am. Any other councilors? Okay, so I'll motion to adopt the consent calendar minus items 5 through 11.
Isn't that all of them?
Nope, there's a 12
Oh, there's a 12 there.
or an 11, whatever.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. We have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Number 5, approval. Yes.
I'm going to recuse myself from voting on 5 through 10, as I was not a sitting counselor during any of those meetings.
Okay. Okay. Council Clerk, note, Council Logan's recusing items 5 through 10. Okay. Just need to fill out a form, Chris, that the clerks will provide to you. Okay. Number 5, approval of minutes in reference to special meeting March 9th, 2021.
Mr. President?
Hang on one sec, Terry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were starting.
We are. We just need a motion on that.
Motion to approve said minutes.
We have a motion, motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second to approve said minutes. Discussion. Council Flynn.
Thank you very much. This was a package that we just got Wednesday afternoon, and there are 6 meeting minutes and a huge agenda. So I honestly have not had time to review them. I'd like to, and I didn't know if they could be continued to the next meeting.
Okay. Any councils have any objections to that? Any discussion? I'm fine with that. If that's, you want to be comfortable with that. You need time to review it. I think that's the right thing to do. Any further discussion?
Discussion
Mrs. Santos?
that the town clerk does not copy all these minutes again.
No, I think Council Flynn has the minutes. So what you're saying is for the next meeting?
Correct.
Okay,
Oh, yes.
okay. Terry, you good with that?
Absolutely.
Okay,
I can
excellent.
use the copies that I have.
Okay, so we would need a motion to Continue.
Continue items 5 through 10. Mr. Vice President was right. 5 through 10 till the next meeting, and for the counselors to use the copies they have for that meeting.
Excellent. I'll second that. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Okay, let's go to,
We actually pulled 11 off, my error. So we have to address
Oh, I
that
forgot.
separately.
Yep.
My bad.
you're right. Okay. Number 11 is application of A&M Acquisitions LLC DBA A&M Tactical, 10 Codington Highway for renewal of a firearms deals license for the 2021-2022 licensing year.
To grant said license renewal.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to grant said license renewal. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay, we need a motion to act as a Board of License Commission.
Sorry.
We need a motion to act as a Board of License Commission.
Motion to act as Board of License Commission.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to second to act as a Board of License Commission. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, acting as a Board of License Commission, number 13, advertised for public hearing and abutters notified. Application of Food Love Market Middletown LLC does business as Food Love Market, 1037 Quinnic Avenue for a Class BV liquor license for use at the same premises, including use of outdoor patio service. This is new.
Mr. President,
Hang on,
I think we skipped 12.
No, that was approved when the consent calendar.
no, that was
adopted.
approved when we adopted the consent calendar.
Okay, my apologies. That was a consent. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. Council,
Motion to open public hearing.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. This is a public hearing. Motion and second, open public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, public hearing is now open. Any councils have any discussion on this? We do have someone that wants to speak on it. We'll just bring that person in. David Martland. David, you there?
Yes, Mr. President, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Good evening, David. Name and address for the record, please.
Yes, David Martland, 1100 Quinnic Avenue, Middletown, Rhode Island. Here on behalf of the applicant, Food Love Market Middletown LLC. My client is requesting the issuance of a BV liquor license to be associated with essentially a new storefront at the property located at 1037 Quinnic Avenue. Previously, most recently, this property had the saltwater edge fishing that was located there. Before that, I believe there were a number of different hair salons, beauty salons that were located in the building. Food Love Market is a business owned essentially by the Newport Restaurant Group. And Newport Restaurant Group owns and operates a number of restaurants around Quinnic Island, Rhode Island, and even and in Massachusetts. Locally, they own and operate the Mooring, the Smokehouse, 22 Bowens, Castle Hill, Barcino, the Boathouse in Tiverton, as well as other restaurants across the state. What they'd like to do with this is to have a marketplace where there will be prepared food that folks can take and bring home to heat up and cook, showing featurings from their various restaurants. But in addition to that, have a component where you could come in and also sit down and eat. You go up to the counter and order food, and there would be some indoor and outdoor seating, and we're asking to have alcohol service with that. We've gone to the zoning board and received a special use permit, as that's required in the limited business district. This evening, I also have with me Ken Kusin, who is a principal with the group and is available to answer any questions that the councilors may have.
I do have, thank you, David. I do have a few questions. First and foremost, the one that comes to my mind is I'm sure it's been looked at, obviously, because we can't have any alcohol within 200 feet of the school property. I'm sure it's not within the 200 feet. Is that accurate?
That's accurate, Mr. President. Yes.
Okay. And the liquor out, do they plan on serving liquor outside?
So there is a outside patio that has 6 4-top tables where that service could occur.
So does that, I'm not sure you answered it.
Oh,
So do they plan on serving liquor outside?
oh, yeah, yes. In that outdoor patio, yes, correct.
Okay. I know where the building's at. I think it's great. We'll certainly like to welcome the Newport Restaurant Group to Middletown. That building has changed hands a bunch of times, different bunch of businesses in there. But in the back, Dave, where the patio, I believe, is planned to be, how close is that to the abutting neighbors? And were there any objections during the zoning process from the neighbors?
So the patio area is going to be located on the sort of the front corner of the building. It is quite a ways from the abutting residential neighbors. During the course of the zoning hearing, a neighbor from Ellen Road did appear via Zoom, had a couple of questions, but did not have any objections relative to what was proposed.
Do you recall what those questions were?
It had to deal mostly with whether or not there would be any change in activity in the rear of the property. So the building itself, the first 2/3 of the building are going to will be operated with the marketplace, with the kitchens and whatnot. The back third is utilized as storage presently, and it will continue to be storage, as well as storage in the yard in the rear. So there will be no change to that operation. Those are what the questions were. The individual who appeared was supportive of the special use permit application after those questions were answered.
Okay. Does any councils have any questions of Council Dave Martin? Mrs. Santos.
Good evening, thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, Mr. Martland. It's Mrs. Santos. I'm concerned about the outdoor drinking. Now, who's going to monitor the serving of alcohol beverages outside, out in the patio? What if somebody has served alcohol and they start walking somewhere else? Who's going to monitor the patrons drinking alcohol?
That would be monitored by the employees of the restaurant. They operate a number of different establishments that do have outdoor seating and are very familiar with how to deal with those situations to make sure that people don't leave with open containers. And they're well aware and acquainted with all of the rules associated with the serving of beverages.
My other question is this an enclosed area? Is it a building or is it just a patio?
So there's the building, which is where many years ago was I think originally had Judy's hair salon in there, probably 25 years ago. So there'll be seating inside the building as well as the marketplace is located inside. The patio is connected to the building and will have a stone wall around it. It's not separate and apart from the building.
All right, thank you.
So Dave, just to be clear, as I look at the schematic, when you pull into the driveway, that patio's to the front right corner as you're coming in.
That is correct. Yes.
Okay.
Mr. President?
Council Flynn.
Thank you. So, hey, Dave, I'm a couple of questions on the application. The hours are listed as 15. Could you define that in operating hour language?
If I could just ask Mr. Kusin to be led into the meeting so he could answer that particular question.
Ken, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. My name is Ken Kusan. I'm the Director of Business Development for Newport Restaurant Group and represent the principals of Food Love Market.
What's your address, Ken?
300 Metro Center Boulevard in Warwick, Rhode Island.
Thank you, sir.
So I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Kusin, for coming on. On the application, the hours of operation are listed as 15. And I'm wondering if you could define those in operating hours of the clock, opening, closing, what the intent is for the 7 days of the week.
So we actually would be serving coffee and breakfast items. So we'd be open at 7 o'clock in the morning, and we would close for service at 9 p.m.
Okay, and let's see. Also, I also had a patio question. I see that it says it's a temporary seasonal expansion of beverage license to serve out in the patio. So that will be seasonally. And another question, because I didn't think that alcohol service was allowed except during the state of emergency during COVID. If you could clarify, the activity.
So with respect to the question, and it's a good question because there's a lot of confusion out there regarding the COVID. So there were businesses that were temporarily granted authority under the state guidelines to serve outdoors. And that's temporary during the state of emergency.
Mm-hmm.
You also have the authority to grant outdoor service just generally, and that's what this would be. So it's not associated with the COVID state order governing the emergency, but rather this is a request for that outdoor service to occur on a yearly basis. Now it's seasonal simply because of the fact that in inclement weather, during the late fall, winter, early spring, they're not intending on having outdoor service out there.
That's correct.
Okay. I'm not sure that was typically our practice, what we typically do. I don't mind it during the state of emergency to help out the businesses in town. But typically we don't have not, that I'm aware of, allow outdoor service of alcohol. And especially with your proximity to the schools, I just think that that's something that I'd like to have other input from the rest of the council. But I do have other questions first, if Mr. President, you don't mind.
Go right ahead.
Okay. So, excuse me. And I'm not sure if these so much would be questions as observations of the decision. I see that you've been allowed a 48 square foot sign where 16 is allowed. And in the statement, it says there's a number of restaurants along a Quinnic with liquor licenses. And, I haven't done an inventory, but I'm not sure that you are, your profile of business is as common as you might think in that end of a Quinnic Avenue. So just kind of sort of observation. So I guess I'd like the council to maybe take a look at that outdoor liquor service that's not part of COVID. It's like a regular thing.
So let me ask then, Wendy, maybe you can answer this, or Peter, I'm not sure. The only one that comes to mind, off the top of my mind, is tickets.
Johnny has it.
Johnny's has it.
Codington has it.
They're outside. Is that COVID or is it, it's a, okay.
What was the answer?
So Johnny's has it, Tickets has it, Codington has it, nothing, then it was before COVID. Well, not related to COVID, the outside service of liquor. Okay. Does that satisfy you, Council Flynn?
Well, I'm still not sure that it's appropriate given the location.
Okay, but they do meet the
I mean,
requirements, though. I understand what you're saying.
Well,
They do.
three, I don't think 3 out of the multitude of restaurants that we have is a, standard. So that part of it, I don't think that I am I'm comfortable with at this point.
Okay. Any further discussion? Vice President.
Thank you, Mr. President. To Terry's point, I also highlighted the size of the sign and the height because I thought that was really stood out to me. But going down to Quinnic Avenue, you would not believe how many signs are that big or bigger and that high or higher. So certainly it's not out of keeping with the neighborhood. And as far as Terry's point, as outside beer with dinner, I don't have a problem with it.
Okay. Peter, now the sign, that's a zoning decision. That's
Yeah,
nothing to
that's
do
not
with,
before you. That was in front of
Right.
the zoning board.
Right.
And
I'm not saying I agree with it, but that's a zoning,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Okay.
Motion to grant said
Well, we're
license.
gonna close the public hearing.
Is there anyone else?
No.
No.
No hands up.
Close the public hearing first.
Yes, sir.
All right. Motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Motion to grant said license.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to grant said license. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, good
Thank you.
luck and welcome to Middletown.
Thank you so much.
Okay, number 14, advertise for public hearing and abutters notified. Application of KVG LLC does business as the Beach Bar, not the Rock Lobster, the Beach Bar that was submitted this afternoon. It does not need to be re-advertised as a DBA, because I did ask that question just for clarification of my colleagues. 59 Quinnic Avenue for a Class BV liquor license for use at the same premises. This is new.
Motion to open public hearing.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to open the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we do have Jeremiah Lynch, the attorney that represents this application. Is Jay on?
I am, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Jay, good
Jay
evening.
Lynch.
Name and address for the record, please.
Yes, Jay Lynch from the law firm of Moore, Vergadamo and Lynch, 97 John Clark Road, Middletown, Rhode Island.
Okay, you want to tell us a little bit about what's going on here,
Sure.
Jay?
This is you're all familiar with the site. This is the former KJ's restaurant. Most recently, it was Rocco's, a restaurant which closed several years ago. There is a new applicant, KVG, whose principal is Kenneth Goyette, who's available to answer any questions that the council may have. We're going to open up a new restaurant on the site. Nothing out of the ordinary. Service is going to be indoors. There will be no outdoor alcohol service on the premises. Mr. Goyette's got quite a bit of decades of restaurant experience working at several Newport restaurants. So he's going to be the license holder and the person responsible for the site.
Okay. Jay, what are the hours here?
It's going to be lunch and dinner service. 11 o'clock till 11, 12 o'clock at night, depending on weekends.
Okay, so is that something in stone, or is it we just gonna, is that part of the application, the hours, or is it just,
Well, we've got the regular hours that are licensed, that is, under the license application,
Mhm.
which are 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock, which is the standard hours of operation.
Mr. President?
Okay. Counselor Flynn?
Thank you. I also had the same question and observation on the hours. And I do want to remind everyone that this is a limited business district. It also is abuts neighborhood residences. And those hours are, although Mr. Lynch described them as standard in the area, they actually are not. I did a quick Google search on the surrounding restaurants and found that both Tickets and the Atlantic Grill close 7 days a week at 10 p.m. A Quinnic Pizza also closes at 10 p.m., but for Friday and Saturday when they close at 11, Diego's closes at 9:30, 7 days a week. And the prior applicants also closed or proposed to close at 10 p.m. And again, I think it's, because of the location and the profile of the immediate neighbors. And so I'm not comfortable with the 1 a.m. certainly.
If I could just respond to that, Mr. Chairman. The standard hours that are issued under the license are from 11 o'clock to 1. The number of businesses close well before 1 o'clock. So that's what was done. That was the prior licenses were until 1 o'clock as well. But for whatever reason, the establishment doesn't elect to stay open until 1. But under the standard hours of operation that are issued under the BV license, they're entitled to go to 1. I'm not saying that they're going to be open at 1 o'clock every evening.
So I think, as I mentioned, that prior applicants have defined their hours and to be closed at 10 p.m. And is that something that we can do here as well?
Is that a question? for
Peter?
me?
Yeah, well, I'm going to refer
Yeah,
to the solicitor.
The council does have the ability to put certain conditions and restrictions on the use of the license, including the hours.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
I
Solicitor.
just want to, and then Terry, I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I just want to make sure we're not singling out one particular business there.
That's why I inventoried the other restaurants were in the immediate area.
But I'm not sure that's is that the time they choose to close?
Yes.
Or is that's not any restrictions we put on them? There's two different things we're talking about here.
I see your distinction. That I don't know. That I do not know.
They do not, according to the clerks, they do not have restrictions on the other times. And I'm cautious about that only because we want to make sure everyone's being treated the same and we're consistent in what we're doing. But the council can say, hey, you know what? We want you to close at 10. They do have that ability to do that. I think that would, personally, I think that's going to cause a problem. But they do have the ability to do that.
Well, I think in this particular location that is the most appropriate course of action. I did have one other question, if
Yes, ma'am.
I may. So, Mr. Lynch, I also noticed, again, quickly looking at the diagram, that you have an outdoor waiting area. And I'm just wondering if you can describe that and let us know, because again, limited time, I couldn't really study these in detail. So I just thought I'd ask, which side is that on? Is that on the, Abutters side? Is it on the Briarwood side, the Quinnic Avenue side, or the neighbor on the Quinnic Avenue side?
That is on the south side, on the Briarwood side. There is an existing
Briarwood, okay.
porch when you're coming up from the rear parking lot. It's a half a flight of stairs up. There is an outdoor landing area that's outside, adjacent, just to the south of the second story dining area. It's a waiting area. Some people have used it for smoking. It's just outdoor. There's not going to be any service in that area. It's all going to be indoors. And there is walls to the east of the building There's a doorway. It's walled off to the east, and it is open to the south.
So there's a wall on the residential abutters side on that outdoor waiting, that open outdoor waiting patio?
There is.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's just the hours that I have a grave concern with.
I just, I understand what you're saying. I just have a hard time personally saying, 200 or 300 feet away is the Quinnic Pizza or Tickets or whoever, or Diego's the opposite way, or Atlantic Grill, that they can stay open till 1, but we're going to restrict this person till 10. I can't. I want one vote, and I'm not going to support that.
Mhm. Well, the conversation, that perspective has not come up before, Mr. President.
Okay.
I know that in previous applications, that was the path that the councils have thought were the right thing to do for the area and the neighborhood.
Yeah, I understand, and I think it's the right thing to do myself this time as well, being consistent and treating everyone fairly.
No, I mean, the conversation was to define the closing time to 10 o'clock.
Okay, I understand.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, who is it? Okay, we have someone here. Can you hear us? Hello, are you there? I don't have a name. I apologize.
That's okay, Mr. President. This is Scott Lyons. I'm representing Beach Wine and Liquors, 43
Hey, Scott, how you
Quinnic
doing?
Avenue. Very well. Yourself?
Good, just good, thank you. Just your name and address for the record, please.
Yep. Scott Lyons, 43 Quinnic Avenue, Middletown, Rhode Island.
Okay. Go ahead, Scott.
As the council knows, I've already sent a email with some concerns, so I'm not going to touch on that anymore. I just have a couple of quick questions, I believe, for Kevin. One would be parking. Just curious of what the capacity or what their seating is going to be and what they have as parking spaces against that capacity. Because when KJ's was open and kind of doing well on Friday and Saturday nights, it was definitely an issue while we were still open for us having the overflow going into our lot. So just a question on if I could get a clarification on that.
Okay. Jay, do we bring Jay back in? And Jay, if you could answer that, parking capacity and parking, what's the plan?
Well, I know we have gotten approval from the zoning board for the existing seating that we're using and with the parking that we had. So this goes back several years where the board had given a variance to permit us to operate with the number of seats that we're proposing with the existing parking that is on the site. If I knew that this was an issue beforehand, I would have had the specific parking count. But my recollection is that the parking is somewhere in the 20 to 25 spaces on site for parking.
Okay, so you have the lower lot and there's parking up above
That's correct.
off of Briarwood. Okay.
And I know that, yeah, and this is all going through the zoning officer who has approved, signed off on this. We do have the appropriate relief from the zoning board for the spaces that, for the number of seats in the building.
Okay. Thank you. Scott, does that satisfy your question?
Hello. It unfortunately doesn't answer the question. It kind of says that if they're going with what they had previously at KJ's, then I should anticipate on a Friday or Saturday night, if they're at capacity, that I'm going to have issues with parking. So it doesn't answer my question as to what they have for spaces and what they have for capacity. I understand he would have liked to know before, but as you know, abutters are not let known about zoning issues. So this is the first I've had the opportunity.
Okay. Jay, I mean, Peter, does anybody, or Terry, maybe you know, are there no parking signs on Briarwood? Anybody know that?
I think there are, Mr.
There's
Chairman.
one. Yeah.
There's no parking signs on Briarwood, correct?
Okay, thank you, guys. Well, we just need to make sure that, again, is another enforcement issue, okay? So Scott, I would recommend, if there's any issues, take the proper steps and, contact the police. And if they're parking, if you have people parking in your property.
Okay, fair enough. And then one other point, and to Counselor Flynn's point as well on hours. My only thing, and I would just say this as being in the neighborhood, or I'm allowed on Friday and Saturday nights to close at 11 o'clock, and that seems like a reasonable hour for kind of that area to close down. The issue with that, and with one establishment there, you've got a ton of hotels, and if everything's closing down at 10 o'clock or even 11 o'clock, there's going to be the mad rush to the beach bar at 11 o'clock and 2 hours of pounding drinks, where these people leave, not saying driving, but they're walking back to their hotels, along Residence, probably up Briarwood. It's going to be definitely going to be some issues. Take a look at downtown Newport at 1 o'clock in the morning, and that's what you would have coming out of the beach bar. I'm certainly not opposed to them staying open until 11, which pretty much the whole neighborhood shuts down. But that would just be my 2 cents on the hours. So I appreciate your time, Council.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Appreciate it. Okay, is there anyone, Mrs. Santos?
Mr. Lynch, or anyone who wants to answer my question, I'm a little confused. The KJ's was a restaurant. Now, there was an article in the newspaper that they were going to remodel and put a 4-story hotel. Now we're going back to a restaurant. Is this the same building?
Well, this is the same building that we have now. We need zoning relief before we can convert this to a hotel. There will be, within the proposed structure, there is going to be a restaurant as part of that hotel. We're still, a year or two away from getting our approvals and starting construction in the hotel. So this is for the interim.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Is there anyone else that has a hand up that would like to speak? Public, no? Okay. Vice President.
Motion to close public hearing?
Second?
We have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Motion to grant said license.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second to grant said license. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? 1, 2, 3. 3 opposed. So we have 3 opposed and 4 in favor. So motion passes. License is granted. Okay, Mr. Vice President.
Excuse me, Mr. President.
Yes.
Can you tell me who voted what? I can't see.
Terry, yourself, and Tom opposed. Myself, Barbara, Teresa.
No, I didn't oppose. That's why I'm asking.
I didn't oppose either.
We have a delay here, so please confirm our votes.
I'm sorry?
It was, okay, I apologize because when Tom raised his hand, you both raised your hand at the same time. It looked like with the delay, so as I'm looking that way, so I apologize. So it's 6-1 then.
Who
Okay,
opposed?
what's that?
Who opposed?
Tom,
Okay.
okay? I apologize. It was just, he's sitting right in front of the monitor I'm looking at, and as he raised his hand, your hands went up with the delay.
Right.
I apologize.
That's why I asked. I know there's a
Okay.
delay.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Okay. Let's see. So we had a motion, a second to reconvene as town council. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Public hearings, number 15, public hearing is advertised. In order to the town of Middletown, first reading, in order to amendment to the town code of the town of Middletown, title 15, Land Use, Chapter 152 Zoning Code is amended by amending subsection E to Section 704 entitled Height and Yard Modifications. The planning board recommendation is on file.
Motion to open the public hearing?
Second?
We have a motion and a second to open the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Public hearing is open. Is Ron on? Ron, could you just run down, welcome, Ron. Good evening. Just name and address, and if you could just describe this for the public.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council, Ron Malansky, town planner. So on this particular proposed amendment, it is a reaction to an adoption or amendment adopted by the town council a little bit ago, where, as you'll recall, we had to change the zoning ordinance definition for building height to be consistent with state law. And that change had to do with incorporating reference to CRMC flood zone maps, in addition to what was already in the ordinance, which was the FEMA maps. Because of the change to the definition, we are now proposing an additional change to section 704 height and yard modifications, where you may recall this has happened a year or maybe longer than that ago now, where the section 704 was adopted and amended to incorporate a reduction in height limits for properties within flood zones as a reaction to the state definition, which allows for developers, property owners to take advantage of the difference between the land elevation and the base flood elevation. The state height definition in flood zones allows basically additional height to buildings in exchange for taking away that that difference between the land elevation and the base flood elevation. And because of that, we reduced, the town reduced height limits in those areas by 8 feet. And that applies currently only to properties within the FEMA designated floodplains. Because of the change to the definition to incorporate CRMC floodplain maps, we now have to make this change to also reference the CRMC maps in section 704, so that that 8-foot height reduction also applies in those situations.
Okay, thank you, Ron. Any councilors have any questions? Does anybody from the public like to speak on this? Okay. So,
Yeah.
so the public hearing will remain open, and we just need a motion to receive it on its first reading if there's no discussion.
I comment, Mr. President.
Okay,
Just to clarify, Ron, I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but for the public who might not, this is another administrative move. Is that correct? So that our ordinances match the states and we really are required to do that?
Well, in this particular case, we're not required to modify section 704. The issue is that we did modify our height definition to comply with the state definition, which, as I said, now incorporates the CRMC maps. So we're not required by the state to amend section 704, but it would be good practice for us to incorporate that CRMC reference into 704 so that we're treating properties within the FEMA flood zone the same as, or I should say the properties in the CRMC flood zone the same as we're treating the properties in the FEMA flood zone.
Okay, thank you. Good clarification.
yeah, I think, Terry, we had done that before previously, had brought it into conformance. This just lines it up with CRMC, so, okay. So we just need the motion, sir.
Motion to announce to leave the public hearing open?
Second.
That's just, we're just announcing that. We just need a motion to receive it on its first reading.
Motion to receive said ordinance on its first reading.
Yes.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to receive said ordinance on its first reading. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Raise that hand, Dennis.
Thumb
All
up.
right.
You go like this, Paul.
All right.
Look, we got this.
I was waiting for the 3-second delay. Okay, that worked. Beautiful. Thank you. Okay, number 16, public hearings advertised in order to the town of Middletown. It's its first reading. In order to amendment to the town code of the town of Middletown, Title 15 Land Use, Chapter 152 Zoning Code is amended, amending section 306, uses subject to and exempt from the DPR Development Plan Review. Planning Board recommendation is on file here.
Motion to open the public hearing.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion to second, open the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Any councilors like to speak on this item? Councilor Flynn.
Oh, actually, I was just giving you a thumbs up for the vote.
Oh, okay.
I assume
Sorry.
Ron will explain this in layperson's terms.
Sure, if you'd like me to.
Yeah, go ahead, Ron.
Sure. So this item is being recommended by the planning board. Amendments to section 306 regarding development plan review procedures. And there are three substantial components to this proposed amendment. The first being changing the person designated as determining what projects would be required to go through the development plan review process. Currently, the ordinance specifies that the building and zoning official makes the determination in consultation with the town planner. The planning board is requesting that that be changed to have the town planner take the lead in consultation with the building and zoning official. One reason being that the development plan review process is a planning board process. And so I think the feeling was that it makes more sense to have the town planner take the lead in making that determination as to whether a project is subject to the development plan review requirements. The second part of the amendment has to do with the types of projects that are required to go through the development plan review process. Currently, you'll see in the ordinance, there are a few threshold requirements. One being any new principal building is required to go through DPR. Any addition of greater than 1,000 square feet of floor area to an existing building, that would trigger DPR. And any new parking area that would have the parking exceed 5,000 square feet, that would also trigger a full development plan review. The changes being proposed that would actually bring the regulations back to what they were in prior years, prior to a previous amendment, that would also include any significant alterations to a facade of a building would trigger the development plan review process. In the current regulations, any modifications to the facade are not necessarily subject to development plan review. This could result in some significant structural alterations, significantly modifying the appearance of a building without getting full planning board review. The board has seen one or maybe two recent examples where this has occurred, and they've suggested that it would be appropriate for the planning board to be able to take a closer look at those modifications to existing buildings. So it'd be any structural modification to a facade would also trigger development plan review. And then the third component of this amendment would be to add a requirement that any project being submitted to the town for review and or permitting, there would be an evaluation as to whether any rooftop equipment, HVAC equipment, is properly screened. There's no current requirement in the town's regulations for screening of rooftop equipment, except for when a project comes through development plan review process. Any new building would be required to screen its rooftop equipment. The board has seen cases where there's minor modifications to existing buildings where there's existing rooftop equipment that is not screened, and the board feels that that's a good opportunity when they're coming before the town to get approvals or building permits to have that rooftop equipment screened. So this third portion of this amendment would accomplish that by requiring an evaluation as to whether screening is in place, and if not, then screening must be installed. So those are the three major portions of this amendment.
Okay, thank you, Ron.
Thank
Any,
you.
Any councils have any questions? Okay, I think they've done closed some of the loopholes here. When construction happens, and facades change, I think it's good that the town has some input and becomes part of the development plan review. And also, Ron, that it certainly makes sense that the town planner would take the lead on this, since it's really coming from that department, in working in cohesion with the building officials. So, okay, so
You have a question?
Dennis has a question. Sorry.
Yeah, Ron. Yeah, I think all those are good. Again, as these things are being built, we wish that we could, make sure that they do what they say they're going to do, but things change along the way and they get a different idea, and then they go and try to make some changes or some additions, and now the town will have a view of that. But who regulates that goes to make sure that when they are building these things, that it's being built right?
The building inspector is required to ensure that the approved plans, and those are the plans that are approved either by the planning board or by the zoning board of review. If zoning relief is necessary, the building official will, through the inspection process, ensure that the structure is in compliance with the approved plans.
So the builder isn't responsible to present any documents to the town confirming that they're doing what they said they're going to do. It's up to the building inspector to show up and make sure that they're doing what they said they were going to do.
That's my understanding of how it works, yes.
So the builder doesn't have any obligation to come back and make sure that the town knows what he's doing or she's doing.
Mr. President?
We're gonna hang on one second, Dennis. Please, solicitor has something he'd like to say.
Just with regard to that, the builder who pulls the permit is required to request inspections from the building department at different phases of the construction, at which point in time the building department will come out and confirm that things are being done both according to code and according to plan, and then eventually close those permits when the project is done. So there is responsibility on both ends to make sure things are being done properly.
Okay.
Okay. All right. That's good. So the person who's doing the building then has an obligation, because they got to come out and make sure that the heating system's correct, the wiring's correct, so they're kind of they're policing each other. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Okay. Is there any further discussion on this public hearing? Anybody have their hand up that would like to speak on this? Okay.
The public hearing will remain open, and motion received said ordinance on its first reading.
Second,
Okay, we have a motion and a second to receive the ordinance on its first reading. And as the vice president stated, the public hearing will remain open. So a motion and a second to receive in its first reading. All in favor?
aye.
Aye. Okay. I got the delayed response. Thank you. I like the thumbs work much better. Okay, let's move on to number 17. And I will say at 8:30, we will take a 10-minute recess, okay? All right. So, and that's in like 12 minutes, 13 minutes. So number 17, public hearing advertised in ordinance to the town of Middletown, first reading, an ordinance and amendment to the town code of the town of Middletown, Title 15, Land Use, Chapter 152, Zoning Code is amended by adding Article 27B, outdoor lighting, and our planning board recommendation is on file.
Motion to open the public hearing.
Second,
We have a motion and a second, open the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ron. Go ahead, Ron.
Okay, so, Mr. President, if you would allow me, I have a brief presentation, PowerPoint presentation that I could run through on the screen, if that's okay.
Sure.
I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So that, just to run through very quickly, I know you have a very busy night. This is a proposal to add a section to the zoning ordinance to provide for regulation of exterior lighting. We do have within the building commercial design standards some limited limitations on lighting and requirements that lighting be dark sky compliant, but there's really no section in the zoning ordinance devoted to lighting restrictions or lighting control. This idea is coming out of the town's comprehensive plan, which includes an action item that the town consider regulations on outdoor lighting to limit night sky light pollution and glare. So that's where the planning board is coming from with proposing this particular amendment. So very quickly, the proposed ordinance, there would be a new section within the zoning ordinance, proposed Article 27B. It would require full shielding of fixtures. And again, we're just talking about exterior lighting. International Dark Sky Association fixtures are encouraged, not necessarily required, but that is an organization that does review fixtures and puts their seal of approval on those that they feel are the best fixtures. It would require so-called warm lamp correlated color temperature, and that's basically the color of the light, which ranges from a yellow or a soft light to a very bright into the blue range of light. When we're talking warm, it's at that lower level, that more towards the yellow end of the spectrum. It would require aiming and shielding fixtures to ensure that there's no glare to motorists, bicyclists, and pedestrians. The illumination projected onto abutting properties would be limited, lighting projecting on residential uses would be limited to 0.1 foot candles, and projecting onto non-residential uses or properties cannot exceed 1 foot candle. For commercial properties, outdoor lighting must be extinguished 30 minutes after closing, and that is excepting security lighting. So, the parking lot lights and other lighting on the property should be extinguished within 30 minutes of closing, but any security lighting at the doors and whatnot would not be impacted. For multifamily or mixed-use properties, where there may be a mix of commercial and residential uses, if it's just an area of commercial uses, again, the light should be off at 11 p.m. or 30 minutes after closing. But that accepts the areas where there's parking and walkways for use by residents of the residential component of the facility or the development. Those lights for public safety would be allowed to stay on all night. And no lighting, the poles should be no taller than 20 feet. Single family and 2-family residential would not be required to go through any approval process, but they are required to address and control light that would be problematic in terms of glare and impacting abutting properties. Lighting must be submitted to the planning board and zoning or zoning official as part of the application, the applicable development process. Subdivision, multifamily, mixed use, and commercial projects. So again, that's for any larger project. Single family and 2-family would not be required to make such submissions. Plans must include the location, type of lighting, type of fixtures being used, and the intensity. And we're actually already getting this at the planning board. Most projects are submitting lighting plans with all the information that's being suggested as being required by this proposed ordinance. Any safety concerns or nuisance glare that exists, even though it may exist today prior to adoption of the ordinance, those are issues that should be addressed at the time that they're brought to the town's attention, and the town can contact the the subject property owner to address that issue. And then any non-conforming lighting that's not a safety or a nuisance issue, any non-conforming lighting must be brought into conformance when the fixtures are replaced. So there's no requirement to change lighting fixtures, only when it comes time that those fixtures have reached the end of their useful life and are being replaced, that they should be brought into conformance. So that's that. I'm going to stop sharing now and answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, does anybody have any questions or comments, or is there anybody in the public that would like to speak on this? There is somebody in the public. Okay, Teresa Spangler, if you can come on in and just your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, can you hear me?
We sure can. Good
All
evening.
right, hi. Thank you for letting me speak. Teresa Spangler, 1111 Wapping Road. Ron, I have a quick question on the slide where you had said about the residential. Now I can't pull it back up, but for single family homes, in regards to, depending on where you live, spotlights are something of importance on the east side here because we have lots of coyotes. A lot of people have dogs and pets that they let out at nighttime. So are you talking about these lights that are covered and focused down to the ground in all areas, or are these going to be individualized for where people live and what they're using these the lights for?
Well, there's the overall, I guess, guidance that your lighting should not adversely impact abutters. I mean, that's.
Oh, I agree with that.
That's being neighborly. So
Right.
that's sort of the basic thing. The actual language, maybe I'll just read this just to make it easier. And this is specifically referencing single family and two family properties. The lighting, number one, shall be directed, shielded, and installed so as not to project onto neighboring properties. So that's what we just talked about. Public rights of way, creating an unacceptable glare to the adjacent residential abutter, or having a significant impact on the night sky. Number two, and this gets a little more prescriptive, lighting shall be aimed no more than 45 degrees from straight down. So basically, if you've got a spotlight or a floodlight, rather than having it shoot out at 90 degrees or parallel to the ground, it should be no more than 45 degrees. And then it says that the number three, the proposal is that the maximum allowed lumens per fixture. So it's not total lighting, but per fixture is 1800 lumens, or equivalent to a 120 watt incandescent bulb. So those are the three components that would apply to single or two family development. And again, you wouldn't be required to go through any review process. You'd be installing these on your own, and you'd be subject to making sure that you're complying with those standards, but you wouldn't go through any review process or any particular permitting process.
Well, I just think that this needs to be very, very carefully considered because depending on where you live, spotlights are a critical part. Obviously, the nighttime sky is very important, but we don't have street lights here because we don't want the light pollution. So I'm happy about that, and I don't keep my spotlights on all night. But I just think that that's important, that people do have that right if they have pets and they let their dogs out in a fenced-in yard or whatever, and they have big pieces of property. So as long as those things aren't being eliminated, and that's not going to be part of limiting if someone does a lighting plan for a new home or remodeling home, and then they're limited to what they can put up in their backyard. That's my concern.
Ron, I have a question. Did the planning board look at this by zone? Say somebody's zone 10,000 square feet versus 20,000 or 40,000 or 60,000. I think that's what she's kind of getting at.
Yeah.
I am. Thank you, Paul. That helps to say it like that. Thank you.
Yeah, I understand that now. And no, the planning board did not look at having different standards based on zoning district. It is any residential development, any single family, two family development would be subject to the items that I just read.
Yeah. Because, I mean, you know, I'm not sure it's the same applies in the 10,000 versus a 40 or a 60,000.
I have to agree with that. If you live in a neighborhood like we do on the east side and you've got a huge piece of property and, you know, there's a big difference of the size of land that you own. Doesn't mean that you could still be allowed to impact your neighbors. But I think that there needs to be, the lighting picture that you showed on the screen is not something that would be effective when you're sitting on a piece of property that's 2 acres and you need that lighting just to park your car in the driveway and be able to walk into your own house. I mean, that lighting would never be sufficient in a dark community. I mean, a dark yard. So I think that maybe, Paul, you hit it on the head, that maybe this should be considered and have some lot sizes incorporated in that for some of those restrictions.
Well, I guess
Just
I'd
a
also
suggestion.
point, if I could, I'd also point out that you have the opportunity to put multiple fixtures. So it's not like you're limited to one fixture and you're trying to light the entire property with a single fixture. So if you have a large property and you wanted to light a good portion of it, you could put multiple fixtures, and that limitation on the wattage, you know, equivalent to 120 watt bulb, that's per fixture. And you could have multiple fixtures.
Mr. President?
I mean, Mr. Solicitor.
I just had a suggestion, because I think these are all good questions. Perhaps Ron could bring some information back to the council at the next meeting. These provisions based for outdoor residential lighting essentially just limit the brightness of each individual fixture and the angle so that it's not pointing straight across at your neighbor. I don't know how far one of these goes if it's at a 45-degree angle, but perhaps Ron can gather some information and bring it back to the council at the next meeting to be able to answer those questions.
Yeah, okay. I gotta say that, and then again, it's just me, that, you know, I get the concept and I think it's a good concept, but I think what's being proposed is an applicable neighborhood for neighborhood based on how neighborhoods are zoned. So, you know, I do think it's a little over the top with, you know, what angle and what incandescent bulb wattage you can use. And I think the intentions are good. I just think to me, it's a little over the top. Any Council Von Villas?
Is this something, when we had our meeting with the planning board said we don't give them sufficient information when we
Yes.
turn something down. Is this something that should be communicated back to them clearly so they understand what adjustments they might have to make?
Yeah, I do. And I think just basically what Peter's saying is that if Ron could go back and, without directing him, but Sean would have to direct him and say, hey, look, you know, this is the discussion that happened at its first reading. If they come back with nothing, you know, we don't have to have it. Do the readings have to be consecutive?
You could continue this on first reading if you chose to do
Okay.
that. Or you could accept it on first reading and continue it and have that discussion at second, or you could continue the first reading and then have the discussion at that point in time to give the board some time to take a look at it. Because once again, I don't know the answer to the question, but Ron is usually pretty good at getting those answers. So
yeah.
It sounds to me like it's not totally acceptable on the first reading.
Right.
So the question is, do we come back with a new draft first reading, or do we make the changes? Does the planning board make changes and then it comes back for the second reading?
Okay.
my recommendation would be to continue it on first reading. So it's still at
It's still a
first,
first reading.
to give the option of doing either one of those, depending upon what Ron might come back with after he talks with the board.
Okay.
Councilor Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have a question. I think that conceptually, this is a tremendous idea. I know it's in our comprehensive plan, and, it's a growing trend and concern of the impact of some of these really white and blue lights that, end up collecting in our environment in the evenings. My question, Ron, is, when you came up with the draft, or when the planning board came up with the draft, which I thought was a great first run, it's really impressive. It's a lot of work. How other communities that have a variety of zones might be handling this. And, if I don't know if you took a template from somebody else, or, if this is novel, are we point men in this situation where, it's not as common as maybe it should be. It's a growing trend. It's great to be a leader. But just kind of wondering some background on how this came to be.
Yeah, so we did actually do some research, and I can't list them off the top of my head, but we did
Fine.
use some models from other communities. I did not see, or don't recall seeing, any towns that do what the president is suggesting, is having different standards based on zoning district, but we could take another look at that as well.
No problem being novel and ahead of the group. Thank you.
And again, I think, as Terry said, I think it's good and conceptually. I just want to make sure if we're going to do it, that we do it and make sense, and we give the proper feedback to the planning board. And they may come back and say, might be a reason for that. We just don't know at this point. So does anybody else have anything like that? Dennis?
Thank you, Mr. President. Ron, this is all for new proposed developments, correct? I mean, this isn't going to go back. This isn't people who have lighting systems today. We're not going to make them take them down and reconform to this lighting, are we?
Where it would impact existing development is when the useful life is reached on those existing lighting fixtures. When they're being replaced, they would have to comply with new fixtures that meet the dark sky requirements. So we're not requiring, or we wouldn't be requiring, existing commercial developments to take down their lights and put up new lights right away. But when it comes time for them to make that investment in new lighting, it would have to be in compliance.
New lighting, like a new fixture, a total, not. Some people have signs already up. We've got certain lights that are in there.
Right. No, I mean, if you're changing a light bulb, no. But if you have to take the fixture down and replace it, the idea would be that the new fixture would be in compliance.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So any further discussion? Anybody in the public want to speak? No? Okay. Mr. Vice President.
Public hearing to remain open. Motion to continue said ordinance on its first reading.
Second.
Okay. Motion and a second to continue the ordinance on its first reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Motion to 10-minute recess.
Okay. We have a motion for a 10-minute recess. We'll be back at 9:45.
Second.
Aye.
Motion is second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you, everyone.
Siri, set a timer for 8 minutes. Hello. Oh, we're on a 7-minute stretch. I'm gonna need a martini when I get done with this, but it probably will be too late for you. Maybe I'll just go to bed.
think. We didn't bring the plane.
Okay, you ready?
Motion to reconvene the meeting.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to reconvene. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So the next one is number 18. And number 18, public
Mr.
hearing is
President?
advert.
I'm recusing from this item. Thank you.
Okay. Wendy, you'll get, I just want to note that Council Flynn is recusing from number 18. Okay. Okay, number 18, public hearing advertised in order to the town of Middletown, first reading, an ordinance amendment to the town code of the town of Middletown, title 15 land use, chapter 152 zoning code is amended by adding a new article 30, Atlantic Beach Overlay District, adding a new column and other revisions to section 602 regarding uses allowed in the Atlantic Beach Overlay District, adding new lines to section 603 regarding dimensional requirements for the Atlantic Beach District, Overlay District, and adding definitions regarding signs to Article 12, section 1202, Planning Board. Our Planning Board recommendation is on file.
Motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to open the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Council Logan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm just going to make a recommendation. Hopefully at the, will the council will hear this out, that we continue this first reading to either the next meeting or make it a special meeting. This is a sizable topic. I've already heard from the residents that live in this area that's being proposed, and there's questions that are coming from those residents. And knowing that we have other items on the agenda, a la beach operations, which needs to happen today, I just request that we think about moving this one forward to another meeting.
Discussion.
Yes.
I'll second that.
You second that? Any further discussion? We do have residents on, right? Okay. I do, I mean, I understand they've waited but Christian brings up a great point that there's certain things that tonight that we have to get done. Beach season is upon us. We need to go over the beach operating plan because that's going to take some time. We have almost 50 items, I think 45 or 48 items to get through. This has been going on since 2007. I believe that's the time frame roughly. I would hope that the residents would indulge us in just allowing us to continue this. Let's set a date. Do you want to have a special meeting for this?
The will of the council will speak for this.
Councilors, Dennis, any recommendations?
One question, how many people have signed up to talk about this, Paul? If there's only one or two.
Three people and two people have their hands up.
So would that be fair to let, I mean, they came here tonight, we hear it and then continue it after that? Is that something
Continue
we
first
can do?
reading.
Okay.
My
do we have to
suggestion is
receive
if
it
you're
in?
gonna- Because I think you would start with Ron, because it is a fairly, as Chris said, it is fairly involved and lengthy. And Ron would start with I think he
Okay.
probably has a PowerPoint presentation explaining the whole thing. So my suggestion would be if you're going to continue it, to continue all of it to either another meeting or a special meeting, so you keep that all intact, because I think it will help the discussion.
Okay.
Okay, that's fine. I just,
We're okay with that?
I respect the people who showed up that might want to say something, but you're right. I mean, Ron probably, I know he's got a presentation, so thank you.
Yep. Okay. And I would encourage we apologize, but it does make sense at this point based on where we're at. It's 10 of 9. We go to 10:30. And some of the items that have to get done this meeting. It's just the way it fell on the agenda. We take them in the order that they come in. I would ask that if residents that are on have any questions, certainly reach out to the councilors, myself, Mr. Wolanski, anybody. We'll be glad to answer those questions, but we will have a full fair, open, transparent public hearing. So, next meeting or a special meeting?
I say a special meeting.
Want to do a special meeting for this? I think it makes sense. It's probably going to take to talk about this, it's going to probably take at least an hour and a half would be my guess. Maybe 2 hours.
Special meeting.
Okay. Wendy, can you shoot out some dates, please, for a special meeting? Maybe we can sneak it in between budget or after budget. We're in May, so I would probably say after budget would probably suffice. Okay. And can we make sure we get this up on the website so the folks that do want to participate, that they understand when it's going to be? And again, we apologize. It's certain things we have to get through tonight. Okay, fair enough. So I would entertain a motion to continue.
Second.
Okay. So moved.
And a
All right.
request,
Yes, Mrs. Santos.
please keep item number 18 paperwork so the town clerk doesn't have to redo it again and we can save on paper.
Excellent, very good. Okay, we have a motion to second to continue with its original presentation and no reprints. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to licenses and permits. Application of Food Love Market, Middletown LLC, DBA Food Love Market, 1037 Quinnic Avenue for a victualling house license for the 2020 to 2021 licensing year. This is new.
Motion to grant said license, subject to building official, fire marshal, and Board of Health approval.
Second.
We have a motion to grant the said license, subject to building official, fire marshal, and Board of Health approvals with a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Number 20, application of KVG LLB does business as The Beach Bar, 59 Quinnic Avenue for a victualling house license for the 2020, 2021 year licensing year. This is new.
Motion to grant said license, subject to building official, fire marshal, and Board of Health approval.
Second.
We have a motion to a second to grant said license based on subject to building official, fire marshal, and Board of Health approvals. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Number 21, application of KVG LLC does business as The Beach Bar, 59 Quinnic Avenue for a mechanical amusement device license for the 2021-2022 licensing year. This is new. It's 3 games, 1 pool table and 1 jukebox.
Motion to grant said license.
We have a motion and a second to grant said license. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Number 22, application for a special event permit from Newport Film Festival for Newport Film Outdoor Documentary Film Screening of Playing with Sharks to be held on Thursday, June 17th, 2021, from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. at the Second Beach parking lot.
Motion to grant said special event permit.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to grant said special event permit. Discussion.
Yes,
Mr.
please.
President?
Mrs. Santos.
Someone who wants to answer, do they have to have insurance?
Which one is this?
They would provide insurance.
I could not hear.
The question was, do they have to have insurance? And the town clerk confirmed that they do.
Okay.
Councilor Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. President. The online docket link had nothing but the first page of this application, and the applicants have a wonderful, extensive COVID plan and gotten very creative with their seating in hula hoops, if I read that correctly. Is the applicant online at all? Do we know?
Yes, there's Rebecca that is on. Would you like to hear from her, Councilor Flynn?
Yeah, I'd like maybe a description so that, 'cause since it was not online, just the first page out of a pretty extensive packet, maybe she could describe it for the public.
Okay, that'd be great. Rebecca, can you hear us?
Yes, thank you so much.
As they say in film, Rebecca, action. Name and address for the record, please.
Thank you. Rebecca Bertrand, 29 Cary Street, Newport, Rhode Island.
Okay.
Thank you so much for hearing our application. And yes, to answer your earlier question, we will have insurance and we always list our venues as additionally insured. We are working really closely with the Department of Business Regulations to meet all of their standards for having a safe and happy event for everyone. So we've made a few changes to our traditional outdoor screenings, which you've generously as a council approved many of our applications in the past. So some of our adjustments include that we're not going to have any food vendors this year, just to kind of cut down on people walking around throughout the venue. We're going to ask people to meet in seated pods. If we are required to provide specific distancing from the state based on the state guidelines, which I believe are going to be updated. I was told by the Department of Business Regulations they'll be updated this week. Then we will go with the hula hoop method that Councillor Flynn mentioned, which is to spread people out by giving them a demarcated space that they can sit in with their little pod, their unit. We're requiring advance reservations, which is not something we've done in the past, but it is a free event. It'll be a film screening with some pre-film music that will be a solo musician playing under a tent that is more than 14 feet away from the audience, as required by the state guidelines. And we are hoping that it will be a perfect success. And it will be the start of a full season that will travel across the Quinnic Island, going to a series of locations. And we may be back before you for another Middletown location later in the summer. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Excellent. Thank you, Rebecca. Does anybody have any questions of Rebecca?
I have one, Mr. President.
Yes, Mrs. Flynn.
And this may go to counsel or solicitor as well. I would also mention that I believe that a $5 donation is requested to keep this great organization going. Let's put that out there. Shameless plug. I did notice that this is a 500 person event, and no additional fire or police detail came through on the extended packet. What's your volunteer base going to be like, Rebecca? And, how are you monitoring this kind of a crowd? It's pretty big.
Well, for us, 500 feels small, actually.
Good news.
Yeah. We will have a strong volunteer corps. I have a team of 4 full-time staff. We have a group of 6 full-time summer interns who help facilitate our events. And then we bring on volunteers in addition to that. And for each event, we have between 15 and 20 volunteers who help us organize everything from taking donations to ensuring that parking is done seamlessly, to making sure that everyone is getting to their seated pods and kind of staying away from each other appropriately. But we feel really confident about 500 as a number that we'll be able to manage safely. And it's a very large space. So this summer, we're only looking at large outdoor venues that can accommodate the spacing requirements.
And I did have one other, Mr. President.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to touch on the ordinance about dogs at the beach. Does that include dogs in the parking lot?
Yes.
It
Okay.
does.
Great. That's no problem. We can, we do that frequently with some of our venues that are not comfortable with dogs. We just make a note on all of our marketing materials that dogs are not allowed. That's no problem.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it, Rebecca. Glad you could come on.
Thank you.
Council Toronto.
Yes, Rebecca, thank you very much. Looking forward to getting some outdoor venues going. So thank you. And very interested in playing with the sharks. So the lifeguards will thank you the next day. So there won't be as many people swimming there. But what is the regulation right now for outdoor, number of people outdoor? I'm not sure, what they're saying.
Yep. Currently, the state number is up to 500, but they are increasing the numbers for outdoor venues of assembly, which this is technically considered an outdoor venue of assembly. They're updating them this week, and then on May 28th, they're going to go even higher. So it's up to 500 right now, and then I believe it's going to unlimited
Yeah.
based on how big the venue is.
Right, and they kind of said outdoor, no mask kind of thing, but people feel comfortable wearing a mask, and that's great, but
Yeah,
disqualify that you don't have to wear a mask.
we are going to encourage our audiences to wear masks.
Okay, but is it required?
We are going to state that they should wear masks. Yes. Will we be mask police? Not necessarily, but it'll be on all of the signage everywhere. But once you're seated with your group and you're eating your picnic, you know, there's no problem if you obviously have your mask off for that. Kind of like when you're in a restaurant.
Okay, and then we're going to talk about this later about the beach, but there's been a statement that was put in the paper that beaches in Rhode Island will be opening at maximum capacity, which is something we'll probably talk a little bit. I know there's another topic coming up, but thank you for what you're doing. Again, great topic. I'm looking forward to playing with the sharks. So thank you.
Great. Thank you so much.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second to grant said special event permit. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, number 23, application for special event permit from Sweetberry Farm, 915 Mitchell's Lane, for the Rozanski Mellow wedding to be held on Saturday, June 26, 2021, from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Motion to grant said special event permit.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to grant said special event permit. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President?
Councilor Flynn.
I just wanted to confirm with the town clerk that this will not include any fireworks.
No, they're not having any fireworks.
Okay, thank you.
All right, excellent. Any further discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second to grant said special event permit. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay. Other communications, continued, number 24, continued from the April 19th, 2021 regular meeting, memorandum of superintendent in reference to Gaudet School track.
Motion to receive said memorandum.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Like, is the superintendent on? Could you, Karen, could you kindly bring her in, please?
Good evening.
Good evening, Rosemary. How are you?
Great.
Excellent. So I went up to walk the track on Saturday with Sean, and because I wanted to see it for myself. And I know at this point in time, it makes sense while Salve is going to redo the turf field to do that. However, you know, we got talking about the dollars involved here. And we also looked at the tennis courts and we walked the whole complex. And so it was several discussions, but in reference to this particular one.
Just Rosemary and I talked today. And
Okay.
there's a small change before
Okay.
you continue. Just
You could probably save me a lot of breath.
I can't.
And my fellow counselors as
Just
well.
the one thing. So one thing Paul and I talked about and Rosemary and I talked about today was the possibility of getting housing aid to offset the cost of the track. So in past years, it's been very easy to get the state to reimburse the town for 35 to 40% of projects like this. So Rosemary and I had a long conversation about this afternoon. She went back to Department of Ed today, and this actually would not be eligible under the new regulations.
It would not.
It would not. So I just want to update you.
Okay.
So that's part of the new process that Department of Ed has implemented since they've sort of reconciled how much money they're giving for reimbursement, as well as the new regulations that have come about since the state started to borrow additional monies for the drier, safer smarter schools, whatever the saying is, but basically because we already have a track, they would treat this as more of a maintenance type activity, not building a new facility, which would provide additional opportunities for students. Rosemary, is that accurate?
That's correct. Yes.
Thank you. Yep.
So if we were to relocate the track elsewhere or relocate the basketball courts and tennis courts, it would be eligible for reimbursement in that it's just, not just, but an improvement or a resurfacing. We're not eligible for those reimbursements.
Okay. So I did walk the track and, you know, it's probably getting close to the end of its useful life. Originally I was going to say that, you know, based on the housing aid, if that was a possibility, it would have saved us roughly $200,000, but because we're not eligible for that, how would the council like to proceed?
Mr. President?
Yes, Council Flynn.
Thank you. So we did get an information email from a resident and, you know, that I shared with everybody. And it made me sort of take a second look at this package and that, you know, as you said, Paul, it's getting to the end of its useful life, but it is just a track renovation project. And I was wondering what the delta would be between a renovation and a brand new track. Because a renovation over something that's already aged, or, you know, maybe that drainage piece, you know, might want to be really inspected or revisited. And I'm not sure that, I'm not sure what sort of outreach on vendors and quotes that this project had. So I have a few questions along those lines.
Okay. Do you want to ask those questions now?
I can. So I don't know if that would go to Rosemary or Sean, but I guess the first question is, you know, how many vendors did you approach, and did you look at a replacement versus a renovation?
Typically, tracks are resurfaced, like what we are proposing. It is beyond the useful life. It's 2 years beyond the useful life. And we got the one quote, the same company that Salve got the quote from. The company, as I mentioned in the last meeting, suggested that we go out separately to get a quote. We did do that, and it did come in came in lower than the initial quote from that was received with Salve. So we did not go out for an RFP. We went out for a quote. We've used this company in the past. We can go out for an RFP if the town council so desires.
And the question about looking at the numbers for a total replacement over renovation?
So, I mean, this is a renovation. I imagine a total new track would be, and I don't have a quote on that, but for a total new track, it would be far more expensive. But I can get that if you so desire. We can get that for the council as well.
Yeah, were a couple of vendors' numbers forwarded my way. Mrs. Craig, I'd be happy to forward them to you as well if you can do anything with them.
Sure.
Okay.
And I would appreciate, you know, if you feel at liberty to send that email so that we could address that as well.
Okay.
The track is, if you looked at the proposal, they are milling the material down to the original pavement, which is about 2 inches. So it is a bit more than what would one call a resurfacing. They're not just putting another layer over this track. They are milling them, milling it down to the original pavement. So you could consider that. I'm certainly not a track expert, although I did run track. You know, as I said, I don't know what the numbers might be. and we can find that information. I think it's important you're asking those questions. We can certainly find that information so you feel comfortable in whatever decision you would like to make going forward.
I just have to add here for folks that I thought it shocking that the disposal of whatever needed to be removed was estimated to be between $18,000 and $80,000, unless I read it wrong. A staggering portion of the project just for disposal of the crap.
Okay. I have Councilor Logan next, Dennis, and then yourself, okay?
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I agree here with Counselor Flynn that we should definitely get the cost of the full replacement. And the reason why is it could reduce our cost in the long run for having to resurface in the future or perform additional maintenance. So yes, it may cost more on paper right now, but the cost over the next 28 years could be substantially less based upon the preventative maintenance that will be necessary. So I would recommend that we look at both options. If we're going to spend the money to do this, let's spend it once and get it done the right way, and then make sure that we're planned to deal with this issue in the next 25 years. Yes, and that's far away, but it's not as far as everybody thinks.
Okay.
So,
Thank
I
you.
mean, typically the life and the research that I've done, the life expectancy of a track is where we're at, that 10 to 12 years. Some research that I have read stretches it to 15 years, but that's pretty much, even if it's a total new track, that's where we would be at. And the information that I sent in the council in my memorandum is that we've had, the original track was built around 1983. It was a 440 asphalt track. In the late 80s, the track was sealed and coated along with kind of a tennis court type coating. The track was then resurfaced in 2001 to create a 400 meter. The track was, back in my day, we ran the 440. The track was then resurfaced again in 2009 as part of the turf field project that Salve installed. And now we're asking for the new track. Again, it is more than just a resurfacing. If you read the specs from the Cape and Island Tennis and Turf, they are milling down the materials and getting down to pretty much the base.
Okay. Councilor Toronto.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple things there. One, I would agree. I'd like to see what the a new track would cost. I mean, it can't, it's a big project, so we might as well see what our options are. Second thing is timing. Can we get another year out of the track? Can we get another 2 years out of the track? I walked the track as well, and I saw it when I was going to school. It was not even close to what it is today. So it's compared to what we had at that time. It's probably not in too bad a shape, but I understand we wanted to make sure it's safe and that, if we get it's done its duty in regards to its life expectancy, which is great. But, can we get a little bit more time out of this? Because we've got a lot of expenses, again, from the COVID, I hate to say it, but there are other expenses that are in front of this in my mind. And so can we, move it out a little bit? Would this be, is this money that's coming from the feds to the town? Maybe this would be a good use for that money. I mean, the school's going to be getting money. We're going to be getting money. Maybe we got to figure out what the best way to pay for this is. And who's negotiating this? Who's negotiating this track? Who on our team is working with the vendors negotiating the?
So the vendor that you saw in the packet, they are on the group purchasing list, the co-op. So they have been vetted by the groups. Typically the group that we're using, they've done a number of fields and tracks in the state and certainly outside of the state. I mean, It's
That's fine.
certainly
I
up
just,
to you. I understand all your concerns and value all your concerns, and we want to certainly address the concerns.
Sure.
But, you know, if you want an independent eye to look at this, bring in a consultant and have them take a look at the track, have them take a look at, is it beneficial to do a whole makeover rather than what we're doing, which again is a little more than the resurfacing. And maybe that you'll feel comfortable with that kind of a decision not being made by the school department, but anyone you might bring in as a consultant.
yeah, no, I mean, just to help out, I know it can be difficult to negotiate these types of things, and you guys are running a school over there, and it's kind of can be tough. I mean, it's a large contract.
Yes, and we negotiate large contracts.
Oh, I know, but this,
Dennis, and we,
I understand that, and I don't mean to demise what you, or minimize what you're,
No.
what you're doing there, okay? I'm just saying, you've got bigger things to fry, and I'm just saying that Terry says there's an $18,000 to $80,000 delta to get rid of the waste. That's a pretty big margin between the two, and I'm immediately like, well, is it 18 or is it 80? And now they're going to say, you know, so I'd like to know those numbers. I mean, they can come and look at what's there, and if they're going to rip it up and then get rid of it, they should be able to say it's going to be 80 or 18. So I'm just saying, can we help you with that? I mean, is there a way that we as a council can maybe get an independent, someone to help with that? Or if you feel confident, or maybe, you know, in the numbers, that's fine. I just like to see what a new track would be, is the timing right, and a more definitive answer in regards to the true cost of what we've done with our streets is we scrape them, take this top surface off, and then we repave them. So, you know, we do that. So I think it's exciting. I'd like to see a new track in there.
well, certainly. And as I said, I certainly respect your questions and questioning. That's your job, and we will get those answers. But, you know, again, if you don't feel confident in what we're proposing, I would suggest that you bring in a consultant and have them take a look at it, see if we could get more wear out of it. You know, again, we're in the life expectancy range. We also took a bid that is part of a group purchasing. We negotiate, we're hard negotiators. You know, those are the facts. I'm sharing the facts with you.
Sure,
But,
no, that's great.
you know,
I appreciate that.
we will work with you on
Oh, yeah. No, I
what you
think-
need. So you feel
Okay.
confident in either saying yes, no, maybe, because we respect what you need to do and for our citizens.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you. We do have Teresa Spengler.
Hello, again. Thank you for letting me take a moment to talk. I just wanted to,
Teresa,
and I apologize.
just name and address for the record, please.
Oh, Teresa Spengler, 1111 Wapping Road, and School Committee Chair.
Thank you.
I got cut off somehow, so I missed the very beginning of the conversation. So I apologize if I'm repeating anything, but I had to get back onto the meeting. I understand what you're saying, Dennis. And, you know, again, I reiterate what Rosemarie is saying. If it's something that the town wants to look into and find a private or your own, someone to come and inspect it and take a look at it. But I do want to mention this, that track is used by our entire community. If you drive by there anytime on a Saturday or Sunday, all different seasons, our community uses that, not just our kids. So that becomes a playground area for our students. It's a football field for our high school students and a track for our high school students, but it's also Pop Warner and other, you know, and Salve, and lots of people use that field and that property. So the playground is there and people are on that track all the time, running, jogging, pushing strollers. So, you know, it's a safety issue too. And I think the town needs to take that into consideration as well as a liability issue. If the track is unsafe and we try to stretch it for another year without doing proper repairs, if that's the case, if we can do proper repairs, we do have to take that into consideration as a town of a liability issue, Because if somebody gets hurt on there and falls, it's a town issue. So, you know, when I went to high school, I ran track too for a lot of years. That was my big sport. And it was blacktop back then. So when I was doing the 300 hurdles and the 100 hurdles and I fell down, I felt the big difference in what it is today. So though when you walked it recently and you see the difference of what it was when we were kids, we want it to be safe for everybody. The other thing that's really important to remember is that when our school system, our high school hosts a meet, we're bringing in other communities. So again, we're dealing with liability issues. We're dealing with safety issues of that track being safe for all students, whoever's coming as a visiting team. So that's something to take into consideration, is that if we don't repair the track to be up to the real standards, then we will not be able to host, we potentially may not be able to host meets here. So that's just something that we would have to take into consideration. Our students would not be able to have home meets if our track is not sufficient for real standards.
Okay, I have a question on that. Is that something that's already been brought to our attention, that we're not going to be able to host races, or is that something we're speculating on?
It's a speculation at this point, but you know, it just depends. If we let the track go and real decides that or somebody from that area decides it's not a sufficient track, or a team doesn't want to come down and use our track. I'm just throwing that out there on the table, that could potentially happen if we procrastinate too long on on repairing the track.
And I think that as a council, and I appreciate your feedback on that, and I think safety is like the number one thing that this council is always thinking about. And that's kind of the card that kind of gets everyone to set up a little taller. So, I mean, I get now we've got a more of a safety issue, and I was out there, I didn't recognize a safety issue. So, but if you're hearing from other schools telling us that they're not going to come run our track because it's in that bad shape, we need to know that.
Well, wait, don't quote me on that. I said that that's a possibility. I'm not saying that if we don't do something about it soon, then that could potentially definitely impact us having home meets and stuff like that. So.
Okay, and just Paul, just overall, I just want the public to know this is a $500,000 project. So this is $500,000, and then there's a field project that they're looking at from a field standpoint, which is $1 million project.
But that's not our $1 million. That's somebody's $1 million.
I know, but again, putting money into things, we kind of have to look at where we're putting dollars, because there's other projects that we're identifying as well that we got to get to. So I'm just looking to see if, as we talk like with fire trucks and things, we got a pumper that we want to get, 2 pumpers, and sometimes we're like, can we get another year out of it? We don't want to create a liability of any point, and if it's going to create a liability, we don't want to do it. We've got to jump on it, right? But I'm just asking the question, can we stretch it another year, not to create a liability, not to say that, people are going to call us and tell us they're not going to run a track meet with us. If it's that bad, then we've really got to get on it. But if there is a way, and I'm just putting it out there, it is a $500,000 project, and maybe that's all. But I want to see a new track. I do want to see a new track. I think we have
Listen,
to
all right.
life out of it. So thanks.
Listen, if we're not going to offer any new information, let's move this along, please. Mr. Brown.
I was going to suggest that based on your comments and Councilor Logan's, the town has also done a lot of work with Cape Island Tennis and Track, that Rosemary and I go back now and ask them for an estimate for a replacement cost for the track, and also, have them advise us on what the longevity of the renovation would be versus the replacement, the full replacement, and bring that back to you at the next meeting.
So Sean, full replacement, we still wouldn't be eligible, right, for reimbursement?
Right, because as Rosemary said, it would be another area. The only other thing I would note on the disposal, they have a tipping fee of $138, which is the commercial rate in the state of Rhode Island. We have enough room under our cap that I can allocate some of the town's cap, and we can dispose of the waste at probably $40 a ton or less. So
that's good.
We can revise that, but Rosemary and I can go back, get the information that you're looking for, and then at the next meeting, I think we can make a better decision. If that's
very good. That sounds good. That seems to be where the council's leaning towards. would like to get another price and replacement versus resurface and
Lifespan.
Once we get that information back, we'll move forward with it, okay?
Next.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Communication, John Zagloski, President, Middletown Athletic Boosters, in reference to request for support, Middletown Athletic Boosters Senior Sports Banquet.
Motion to receive said communication.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we have it in front of us. Typically, their senior sports banquet is held to recognize the Middletown High School senior class athletes. It's typically held on Sunday before graduation and is the kickoff for senior week events, but due to the pandemic, last year the banquet did not take place for 2020. So at the end of the day, they weren't able to, they get their money, they raise their money through concessions for this event, and they haven't been able to do that because of the pandemic, and we would like to recognize those as the COVID restrictions lighten up a little bit. They'd like to be able to recognize and have a sports banquet to recognize the senior class athletes. So I thought it was great. John had contacted me. I told him we'd get it on the docket. He forwarded it into Wendy, and I'd like to know if there's any further discussion.
Mr. President,
Yes, ma'am.
they did the athlete baskets last year, and my daughter was a recipient, and it was such a nice surprise and just filled with mementos from Middletown, and
Yep.
and it made COVID very special, and I'm sure it will for the graduates coming up as well. So I definitely support it.
Okay.
Motion to authorize a civic appropriation in the amount of $2,500 to be appropriated from the council president's discretionary fund.
Second.
Okay, I just have one question since we're in the current budget year. Is that President Sylvia's discretionary fund? Okay.
Town council president.
We just kidding. We have a motion in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Number 26, email communication of Michael Falcone, Director of Baseball Operations, Newport Gulls Baseball Club, in reference to Middletown Appreciation Night for the Newport Gulls.
Motion to receive said communication.
Second.
We have a motion, a second to receive. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Sean?
So for the past few years, it's been a number of years now, the town has sponsored a Middletown night with the Newport Gulls. It was canceled last year, but they're looking to do something again in the upcoming year as we start to look at recovery from COVID. So the communication is essentially to question whether or not you want to continue sponsoring the Gulls into the 2021 or baseball season. We talked a little bit about this internally, and I guess, this gets back to trying to take actions that are supportive of the community recovering. There may be reduced attendance, but we do see it as an opportunity to continue to promote Middletown and the Quinnic Island as a community that's healing and ready to move forward.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. President?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I think this is a great project for all the reasons that Mr. Brown just stated, and to also support the Cardines Field, which is a historical site, and they do such special things over there that I don't think anybody's doing anywhere. I think it's a boon, and I think Middletown should have its name as part of the season.
Okay, I totally agree. Okay, seems to be a lot of councilors shaking their head in a positive direction, so.
Motion to authorize funding for Middletown Appreciation Night, Newport Gulls, in the amount of 2,500 to 4,000. What do you want to put in there? What are they asking? 2,500?
Asking.
What have we done in the past, Sean? Any idea? Or Wendy?
Bottles, baseball bats, T-shirts.
Dollar wise?
What's that?
Dollar wise?
It's ranged between there, just like it says. It depends.
Okay.
On what we give away
Okay,
at the night.
very good. Sorry, Mr. Vice
Okay,
President.
so no, that was made between $2,500 and $4,000 to be appropriated from the council president's discretionary fund.
So we need an amount.
What's that?
We need an amount. An exact
It's in
amount.
between that
No, they
amount.
said a
Oh,
range.
okay.
We don't know what that would be.
Okay,
Okay,
second.
we have a second. Motion is second for Middletown Appreciation Night for Newport Goals. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, excellent. Town council business, number 27, memorandum of Council Von Villis and Vice President Welch in reference to West Main Road development.
Motion to receive said memorandum.
Second.
We have a motion is second to receive. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, discussion.
I would like, if you don't mind, to read the introduction here, because I think it's important that the public understands where we're coming from.
Okay.
Okay. The potential redevelopment of the West Main Road corridor has been under discussion for more than 15 years with no action, while continuous improvement has been undertaken in other areas more frequented by tourists, in spite of the fact that more than 10,000 of the 16,000 residents live within the West Main Road corridor, and that is 2018 data. It's time to enhance the lives of the majority of permanent Middletown residents with nearby cultural and retail opportunities, as well as provide affordable housing for young people with families who are being priced out of the housing market. The economic recovery from COVID and the future prosperity of Middletown depend on forward-thinking decisions. The following motion is intended to initiate an active process of redevelopment that will, in many ways, facilitate the permanent settlement of young families, as well as contribute to the dynamic character of a community that values its permanent residents as much or more than those who have inadvertently led to Middletown's dependence on the tourist economy. Mr. Welch, do you want to make some comments, and perhaps you can make the motion?
Sure. I too am behind this. I was behind it the first time. I realized we only got one proposal back. Under the circumstances, I was still willing to listen to what they had to say. However, the feeling in the room and from others I've spoken to, thought we should try again, ask for another RFI. So I am for that as long as we can move this forward and at least do something over there. I think it should be developed nicely and make the surrounding West Main Road, bring it up to snuff. So that would be a nice spot. So I'm behind it.
So you got to do the motion.
Read the motion. That the town council authorize the town administrator with the assistance of Fourth Economy to release the request for information RFI for developers to provide information and interest on redevelopment options for the West Main Codington Center.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I would just like to make a couple brief comments. Initially, I didn't support at least getting the information. This is just a request for information. In my mind, I never want to let go of the old Middletown. That's just me. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying it's just me. And after thinking about it, talking with Councilor Von Villis, the bury the head in the sand comment really got me. And I'm not throwing a dig at you, it just got me. Because I didn't think that I was doing due diligence to be able to at least get information about, what could potentially be, instead of just digging my heels in the sand and saying no. So I'm certainly open. This is a request for information, an RFI. After a lot of consideration and a lot of thought, I am certainly open to at least getting the information, seeing what comes back, and then I will certainly make my decision then. But I think I need to be open for information, and I have no problem saying that out loud compared to where my stance was, in the past. When I got back on the council, this was being talked about in 2012. So there's a long history of being dug in. But if we don't get information, then we can't make informed decisions. So that's where I'm at. Any other comments?
Mr. President,
Counselor Flynn.
Thank you. This issue was brought to the council by the town planner back on March 15th, just 49 days ago. Council voted not to pursue a reissue of the RFI. One of the comments was that it might simply be too early for developers or respondents to know what model would meet the town's needs and be profitable because of COVID. I don't think any of us know what the economy is going to look like, education is going to look like, housing, what our lifestyle habits are going to be. We also voted not to pursue the previous RFI's sole respondent because that could commit Middletown to that respondent. Right now, so far, I've only heard that, others think the request should come up again. And I guess I would like to ask the sponsors of the docket item, what different and additional data points have they obtained to change council members' minds? A few things were mentioned 49 days ago. The what's going on with the Newport ramp? What's the zoning uses going to be down there? What about the traffic study that they recently engaged in? In addition, have additional data points like what's our current inventory of commercial vacancies in town? Has anyone got a statement or thoughts from the Chamber of Commerce or the Quinnic Island Planning Commission? Are there white papers or articles of information that address, communities' futures post-COVID? I'm frustrated in getting another docket item without any additional data points.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Welch.
Yep, just a couple of things to what Councilor Flynn just talked about. I realize you want data points, and I believe that will come out of the RFI. If we engage with whomever or multiple parties, we can ask them questions, and you can get a better feel for where they're coming up with their numbers. As far as vacant real estate goes, whether it be commercial or residential, and I've said this to you before, if a developer is coming in with a plan, and I really like Mr. Brown's use of a visual for me, which was Lego blocks, and the different colors and different shapes represented whether it be commercial restaurants or residential property or whatever it was, and that we as the council or the town could assemble these blocks in what we thought we wanted to look like and or consist of. And then the developers would come back and say, well, no, there's we can't make it work numbers wise with 80% senior housing. And we work on that model until we get to a spot where they either say, okay, this is what we can do, and what we have a vision for, they mesh or they don't. But in order to get there, we need to go to the next step, to let them do a traffic study, let them do more, data for the potential occupants. So as far as I'm concerned, it goes one more step to give us the information that you're asking for. And as far as the ramp and Newport goes, I don't want to say I don't care, but I don't want to sit and wait for them to see what they're going to do and try to follow. As it has been noted, this plan has been talked about for a long time now. And I say if we get something that in front of us that we as a group and the citizens are behind, then we should move on it and Newport can follow us. Thank you.
Mr. President, may I respond?
Yes, Mrs. Flynn.
So I'm not saying to sit and wait for Newport with whatever they're going to do, or that I'm opposed to RFIs. I stated at the last meeting on the 15th, I'm for it, not just right now. My point is that no data has come with this docket item to support your request. It's just another request with the same information. That is not good presentation to the council. That's my observation.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. The other thing that I thought about as I as I looked at when we prioritized what we wanted to accomplish as a council, some of the things that rose to the top, obviously, number one was affordable housing, whether it be senior or young family. And during the senior portion of the survey that was put out several years back, came back is that very strongly they don't want to be on West Main Road or any main road. So, Terry, one of the things that we talked about in our senior housing subcommittee a couple of years back was, young family housing. So after I voted against this the last time, I began to think, well, can we get a couple of projects, couple of priorities together here, and do something. I don't want to use the word big, but do what's right for the community, what we've been talking about. So my thing would be is that, if there's going to be mixed use here, I would want to see the RFI potentially come back and say, we can do affordable housing. I don't want to see an AMI index or whatever it is. I want to see a dollar amount that is actual affordable for young families. Like, is it $1,000? Is it $900? It can't be $2,000 or some of that may have to work for the developer. I'm not saying it all has to be affordable, but I'd like to be able to see some type of affordable housing for young families and young people to be able to come and settle in Middletown or get started in Middletown. So that's what really kind of, as I thought about it more, shifted. And, Tom had brought up a good point about, I agree with him on, I don't want to wait for Newport. I think that we take the lead and we get out there, and it's a competitive market. And it's going to always be competitive. So, again, it's an RFI, and that's just me thinking out loud. And I think that I'd like to see what the RFI says and what it could potentially bring or not. And then I'll certainly make a decision based upon the facts. But, I guess I can't make a decision if I don't have any facts. And that's where I kind of tripped myself up last time, trying to preserve old Middletown.
Response, Mr. President?
Hang on one sec, Dennis.
Oh.
He had his hand up.
Yep.
Terry can respond because she's kind of going back and forth a little bit, Paul, but thank you very much. If you don't mind, Paul.
No, that's fine. Go ahead, Terry.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that, Dennis. Just to take off on what your comments, Paul, which I definitely agree with. Those are data points. We just spent $9,000 for Keystone Consulting to do a housing market study. We did do a senior center survey, and we know, like you just said, the seniors don't want to live on West Main Road. We also have an affordable housing project manager, Frank Spinella, who these are knowns. We do know that part of our community in the future, that is a need that we know. It's identified and it's been partially defined. So I think that our affordable housing project manager might want to be involved in this. And those are data points that I appreciate when getting a docket item. Thank you.
Your point is well taken. Thank you. Mr. Toronto.
Thank you, Paul, President. We put this out to bid and everyone was excited, right? And we only got one response. COVID hit, and then it sat for a little bit. And we're bringing back things onto the docket again to start discussing it again. And the last time we talked about this, we were actually trying to then approve to go take it to the next step to work with the one response that we got. And so my vote then was, no, we should re-advertise this. Now, are we going to re-advertise it the same way that we advertised it the last time? Did we, in that RFI, it's been a while since I've looked at it, but maybe some things have changed since then. So I just want to make sure that what we've been talking about, what our needs are in Middletown, is reflected in this. Not what the developer wants to do with it. I want to make sure of that. And if it's good to go, that's great. Because we do need multiple bids. And then we'll know. We can take a look at it. I've had people ask me for trade centers over there. Okay, I've had people ask me to say, keep it open green space. We don't have any open space on the west side. Plenty on the east side. We don't have any on the west side. I've had people approach me to say, what's going on with that road on Quinnic? You know, what's with the road that we've got developed? And I said, listen, that's a state road. I'm not, you know, but no, this whole thing's going to tie together. So I'm like, okay. So there's a lot of questions. A lot of people are asking about it. And then people say to me, well, what about the Atlantic Beach District? And I'm like, I know that's out there too. And, you know, there's one statement in here that I just want to clarify. Maybe someone can help me. It says, you know, this is being discussed for 15 years. No action while continuous improvements have been undertaken in other areas more frequented by tourists. I'm kind of don't know where that is. Can someone tell me where that is?
I don't know who said it. I don't know.
It's in this right here. It's in the docket item.
Okay.
They're making a statement. Can Mrs. Von Villas tell me where she's referring to?
I'm not sure did you catch that?
No.
He wants to know in the docket item that you're saying that, you know, other areas have been upgraded. What items? He wants to know what area you're referring to.
Oh, I think there's been a lot of work that's been done on the east side of town. An awful lot of work that's an awful lot of a number of things come forward for projects and improvements and other kinds of things where there's always a lot of attention given to the east side of town. And I just think when there are 10,000 of the 16,000 residents that live on the west side, some attention ought to be given to the west side. It's about time.
Okay.
Well, can I follow up, please? It says undertaken in other areas frequent by tourists. I just don't know where that is. And it's not the Atlantic Beach District, okay? And then I don't want to divide our town. That's doing division in our town. It goes down here and talks about initiate active processes to redevelop, you know, saying that we're not paying attention to our young families as we contribute to dynamic characteristics and we're attending to our tourists again. Well, the tourists are a big portion of our business. And so I don't really want to start bad mouthing them and start dividing us. Okay. So we're one town, one community. We're all got to be rowing in the same direction. So just let's stop calling people out and let's start working together.
So, okay. Council Logan.
I'll take a first bite at this apple. I see from our budgets that our expenses are going up. I see that we need new revenue opportunities. What better opportunity to generate revenue in the town of Middletown than in an area that can be developed and be very inviting for everybody, right? Not just for the West Siders, not just for the East Siders, but everybody that's coming off that bridge also. Do we have an opportunity to bring people into this area, a la like a town center, to make it inviting, to knock off some things like affordable housing, to address that entire development there, to give opportunity to reface the commercial properties across the street also? Because I believe personally that that's going to happen if we put something nice across the street, right? So I think it's short-sighted for us not to continue to revisit this. We need revenue opportunities. This seems like a perfect opportunity for that. Every time I drive past that ball field, and it's been a long time, and I'm a West Sider, by the way. I grew up right by there in a neighborhood that's over there. I feel like I throw our wallets out the window into that open field because it doesn't generate anything. And people talk about open space. It's a lovely open space. Have you seen anybody in that ball field? Now, we use it for flag football for my kids, but I don't know anything else that happens over there. We have a diamond in the rough there. There's a gem in Middletown. And I think that's it. It's one of many. And if we do it right and we look at it for the future, it's going to generate revenue that we can make Middletown more affordable, bring more families in, more jobs, and really change the dynamic of our community to meet our residents' needs. So I'm fully supportive of going back out in RFI. I want more information in it. I want more than one bid. And I want to be in the driver's seat to determine what's going to be put there. It's just that simple. And it is a top priority item out of the 6 that we put forward from last week's special meeting with the planning board. There's no reason why we shouldn't do this.
Okay. So, any further discussion? Because we do have a motion and a second for the RFI, to re-advertise for an RFI.
No, that's the next one. That's the next one.
That's the next.
Next one.
Okay, very good. Is there anybody? Okay. Is there anybody who wants to speak? No? Okay. All right, so we have motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's tough with the delayed reaction. My hand, do you see my hand was delayed that time?
Same as theirs.
Well, I was on the screen, that's why. My.
They just gave 2 thumbs up. I think
Okay,
that's-
thumbs up. Thank you. Dennis, after all that, you put your thumb up.
Oh, no, what I was
Excellent.
saying is, I want to get more information. I'm all
agree.
for getting more information, but.
I know.
I've had
I
people
agree.
say trade centers to me. I've heard people say open space.
Okay,
Just saying, we do need, we still need to, vent that out. That's all. I think we need more information. I'm all looking for it. I think there's great opportunity there.
all right, awesome. Thank you, sir.
Target
Okay,
item data points. That's,
okay. Your point was taken, Mrs. Flynn.
thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Town Administrator, number 28, continued from April 19, 2021, regular meeting. Memorandum of Town Administrator in reference to beach operations plan update.
Motion received said memorandum.
Second.
We have a motion second to receive. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Brown.
I think the major update, even since I wrote this memo, is that the state has announced that the beaches may open at full capacity.
Yep.
So when I had written this memo, actually the guidance from the state was to open where we left off. So that is by far the biggest change that we are adapting to. I met with Will Cronin last Friday. We went through the changes that are necessary to achieve that, and those are well underway. There's a little bit of I went through my memo showing where there's no changes. Parking lot operations, we're still working on the surfer's lot and the Triangle A just to define how that parking lot will operate. My one issue there is I need to meet with the 2 vendors, the surf vendor and the food vendor, just to make sure, however we operate the parking lots, that they will be able to conduct their businesses without impacting the bids that they, or the contracts that we have with them to operate. But right now, we're still looking at a reservation of parking spaces for residents, as well as for an area where non-residents and daily parkers would park. I think our goal is for the surfers side to be town residents, and then let Triangle A be the lot where we take care of the non-residents and daily parkers, but we'll finalize that here shortly. There's been a lot of talk about concessions. We went through with the fitness concessions. That's been canceled. We are issuing special event permits to the fitness vendors, so that's a change. We've decided not to pursue the equipment rental concession right now due to COVID and the complications of disinfecting equipment that's rented. So we'll look at that in the future year. And I believe the Dogs on the Beach outreach project has started or is close to starting. I know we have the portable signs down there, and I'm not aware of any complaints. And I think the last piece is with the capital projects. We're not purchasing a vehicle for the boat. We're going to repurpose one from the current inventory of vehicles. So
Okay.
we have staff hired. We've already started doing work down there to get the beach open, and we're well ahead of where we were last year at this time. So I think it's going to be a really great beach season.
Awesome. I have a couple questions, Sean.
Yep.
In reference to the Surface End parking lot, I personally would just like to see that resident only. Non-residents can go across the street, and residents in the triangle right there. That's just me speaking out loud. I think if any opportunity, we didn't borrow federal money for that piece. So any opportunity we have to to continue to try and make that as resident friendly as possible. I think we should. Secondly, I would like to take a tour of the campground myself, if anybody wants to join me. I know if there's more than 4, we'd have to post that, but I'd like to see what upgrades are needed down there. We do charge a lot. So I think by extending the season and potentially look at potential upgrades. And then lastly is the RIPTA has announced that potentially they want to bus some people in. And initially I thought, well, okay. And then I thought, well, you know, I always think worst case scenario where, you know, okay, we're charging our residents and non-residents, but then worst case scenario, you see a busload of people unloading and, you know, taking up space on the beach that they're not paying for. So I don't know how you feel about that. Maybe I'm off base on it. I don't know. And then 2, safety wise and traffic wise, how do we control that? And I know I had a discussion with Sean about it recently, and he said, well, last time they did that years ago, they really didn't get anybody on the buses. So that's why they discontinued it. I don't know how long ago that was. I think with restrictions opening up, I think, again, we're going to see Newport full. I don't know how many people come to the beach, honestly. It just, something doesn't, with me personally, just doesn't sit right with buses of people unloading, and, you know, we're not charging them, and we're charging our residents to go into the beach. Councilor Welch.
Thank you. A couple of things, but to pick up what you just said, when I looked at that RIPTA thing too, my problem with it was that, I mean, if Middletown residents are getting on the bus and coming here, that's great that people have access to the beach. But when I looked at the loop, it grabbed all Newport people, and they could come, you know, they could get off the first beach, but they could continue on to Second Beach. So I don't see how that's fair. You know, if it were me, I'd want to go to Second Beach. So you get on the bus and you come there, but Middletown isn't on the pickup loop. So I didn't like that. Surface end parking, I'm with you. If that's a possibility, I don't know if that's fair because we took state money and all the rest of it, but if we can, I think that's a great perk. 3 more things I'll just say quickly. Campground improvement, we talked about doing, but I don't see it written down. I know we didn't put a dollar amount on it. Personally, I'd like to talk to the campground manager and or the campers themselves to see what they say. So it's not something that I expect to be on here now, just I don't want it to be forgotten.
So just to add to that, so what Will and I talked about last Friday is doing a quick survey of the campers and then following up immediately with a town hall discussion down there to get their input, just as you're suggesting.
Perfect.
But we did want to try to get out immediately, like, you know, something that we can just get a satisfaction survey or something as a starting point, you know, so we weren't doing the cold open when we sat down with everybody.
Agreed. Thank you. Just 2 other things. I'm still against the credit debit only thing. I think we should be able to take cash. And the harbor master, you talked about repurposing a vehicle, and I still go back. I dug it out again to the 2020 summary report from Stuart Braun, suggesting the logical plan would be to keep the boat on a mooring and just use a kayak to get out there and not have a tow vehicle. Anyway, maybe you've discussed it again,
that's
or
a great idea.
I'm sorry.
I think that's a great idea.
My only concern, so, and I know someone's going to ask for the reports, but there are a lot of issues with electronics and things like that being stolen from boats. I mean, we don't have a monitored harbor like Newport Harbor. So there have been issues in the past years where if someone leaves something of value on a boat, it does go missing. So we can look at that, but it is sort of an open area. And I don't know how the boat's set up that they could take the gear, you know, out at the end of the day and reinstall it, but something we can look at.
Okay. You all set? Council Sanders.
I agree with you as far as busing non-residents down to Second Beach. Our residents pay to get on the beach. Why should RIPTA pick up passengers, say in Newport, and go all the way down the beach and lead them off without paying. That's number one. Number two, because it's 10 o'clock and we've got a lot to go through yet. Second, I want to go down to the campground when the campers start coming in, and I want to see exactly what the campground manager does, excuse me, with the campers as they come in. I want to see what his duties are, what he does exactly. So if anybody's willing to go down with me, call me and I'll go down.
Okay.
As long as you don't interfere in his job
Oh,
duties.
I won't interfere. I work
I
for the
just
town,
wanna
Sean,
clarify
many
that.
years. I will not interfere. I
No,
just want to
that's
see what
fine.
he does.
Okay.
I'll go down to Temper. I'll pick you up.
In
I might leave you in the
A
truck,
date.
but I will
In the
pick you
truck.
up.
I need the truck ladder.
Well,
Okay.
yes. Okay. Any further discussion? Council Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. President. For everyone's information, the public hearing for that beach bus with RIPTA was on the 29th of April, last Thursday. And unfortunately, they did it on WebEx, which is a foreign platform for me and a lot of other people. And so I got in as it was ending finally, but they should have minutes on the Secretary of State site, they said. They didn't record it, but it would be interesting, I think, to see what the public comments were. I did want to ask some questions as well. And part of this is the cash thing. It is my understanding that there will be a process for those who are paying cash, whether they come to the beach for a daily purchase or a season purchase, that they can pay cash. Is that correct or not?
Well, you just said there was a process. So where did you get that information from?
I might have missed where that got eliminated. I thought that there was always going to be a process for those people, for people who pay cash, and there's a lot of them, to have access. I don't think there should not be a process. I think that would be a problem and a mistake. I think it shows that you are discounting a certain population's access to the beach.
Well, I'm probably simpler. I wouldn't turn away cash or credit. I tell the employee to take it no matter what. So, I'm a lot simpler than that. There will be a process where cash will be received.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure of that. So that was one of my issues. We got some emails from various, residents and parties that go to the beach. And I know that the beach passes have been an issue. The third beach free pass went away. That every taxpayer used to be able to, get one of those as part of them paying taxes. And I know that's gone, at least for now. I'm not sure if we're at some point we'll talk about bringing that back. There also used to be an extra second beach pass. When you purchased a second beach pass, you'd get a second beach pass. We had someone write in where, they now are down to one car, but their children, all come to visit, and, they don't have that second beach pass, so, to get on their children's cars, I guess, to go. And so, this whole pass thing, where is that? Are those things going to come back? What accommodations, if someone really can't afford the beach, that third beach pass, perhaps, is there a scholarship or an issue, something at town hall where they can, speak to someone about getting help if they really, they're on a fixed income, or, they just can't pay for a whole pass.
So this came up last year. I think you brought it up, and we had the same conversation. Anyone can call my office, and we will work with them. We gave away no free passes last year. We have the same program for the trash program. I gave away no free trash bags last year. I think generally, Middletowners are able to afford these things, and putting the budget together. The challenge I have, the major shift that's occurred here from a policy standpoint is we are literally reserving 1,000 parking places for Middletown residents. 2 years ago, there were no parking spaces reserved for Middletown residents. So I do appreciate that there's no, and again, so from where I sit, I mean, I do understand that there's no second sticker. I do understand that there's no free third beach. But when I went to the beach last year, the fact that those parking spaces were available, and this year there'll be that many more parking spaces available, I think it's a really fair trade-off. And I think we have to recognize you just can't, are you just going to put it on the tax rate? That's sort of where this ends up going. And I don't think we want to do that. We've always strived to make the beach an operation that pays for itself and provides additional revenues for Parks and Rec, civic appropriation, and money for the youth sports programs and things like that. So this is, we're in COVID recovery. It's exciting that we're going to open at capacity. And this is going to be the first summer we're going to see what these changes mean to the bottom line. So I think, like I said in the beginning of the presentation, it's a matter of remaining agile, working with residents, and we'll try to get this to work. But I think it was a resounding success getting residents in that beach and also promoting, what we said, a family-friendly beach, and hammering that home, not only to the residents, but our employees, so that it's a very simple standard and metric for people to understand and follow. So.
Okay.
Response, Mr. President?
Yes, we are 10 after 10 and we have a ton of things to do. So we can talk about if it's something new. Absolutely.
I just wanted to point out that, I understand Mr. Brown has not had to give out trash bags or beach stickers, but I don't think people knew that there was a path for items that might be needed. So I think this was very valuable to get that out in the public and to make that known. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Terry. Dennis.
Yep. Thank you, Paul. Thanks, Sean. You got, those are the concerns we heard with the season pass, the second season pass, third beach stuff. So as long as you have it on your agenda, I know it was new news that we were going to open up 100%. And I think that having reserved places for residents was awesome. I know they loved it. We didn't get a lot of calls about not being able to get into the parking area. So that kind of was a good thing. But as long as you're flexible, because sometimes, halfway through the day, maybe those spots aren't available. No one came down. Now that's good. We can actually start letting people park there. And maybe I heard about the day passes. That kind of helps people who can't afford to spend $140 on a season pass. Maybe it's a locals only daily pass or something. Thank you for your flexibility. And I know you'll do the right thing, and Mike McGordy and everybody. So, to open it up and try to get back to the norm as much as possible. And I did walk down to the campground, and I appreciate Sean and Will went down and did a little spring cleaning down there, put a fence up along where the wildlife is, and cleaned up a lot of stuff down there. So it looks really good. So thank you for doing that.
Okay. We do have someone like to speak. Lawrence Frank, Mr. Frank.
Lawrence Frank, 8 O'Donnell Road, Middletown.
Thank you.
Climate change often creeps up on us a little bit at a time, hardly noticeable. Here in Middletown, it is more than noticeable. At Second Beach, each high tide is a reminder of the environmental consequences. The beach is disappearing. Based on current information, sea level rise for Newport and Middletown will be 15 inches by the year 2050, less than 30 years from now. Second Beach will no longer be a place for people to sit in the warm sand during the summer. This is also a warning of the economic damage that the town will suffer in the years ahead. The beach is an economic resource for Middletown. Besides the fees collected for parking and concessions, the tourist industry relies on the beaches as a driver of visitors and dollars for the town. Hotels, restaurants, sports stores all rely on these visitors to sustain them. For better or worse, Middletown has put its economic viability in the hands of those who do not live here. How do we prepare for that? Beach restoration is possible. Beach restoration involves the placement of sand on an eroded beach for the purpose of restoring it as a recreational beach and providing storm protection for upland properties. Restoration is generally accomplished by bringing sand to the beach from inland sites or adjoining beach segments, or by hydraulically pumping sand onshore from an offshore site. In many coastal areas, the economic impacts of wide beach can be substantial. Since 1923, the U.S. has spent $9 million to rebuild beaches. One of the most notable examples is the 10-mile-long shoreline fronting Miami Beach, Florida, which was replenished over a period of from 1976 to 1981. The project cost approximately $64 million, revitalized the area's economy. Prior to nourishment, in many places, the beach was too narrow to walk along, especially during high tide. Now would be a good time to make plans to address this, not only for the recreational benefits of Middletown residents, but for the long-range economic survival of our town. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frank. Okay, any further discussion about the beach plan? Sean, you good?
I am.
Okay, excellent.
Thank
Thank you, everyone. Let's move on to number 29, memorandum of finance director through town administrator in reference to concession bid MIDD-021-004.
Motion to receive said memorandum.
Second?
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it's Sean.
I think Mark's online, if Mark can run through it.
Mark, are you there?
Yes, good evening. I'm here.
You want to do the summary as a purchasing agent, Mark, please?
Sure. So we did go out to bid. We issued the RFP in March. We did have one bidder, and they bid $55,000 per year for the 5-year contract. They did, as the proposal is included, we wanted them to provide better food options, which are included. There are healthier options in prior years. This is a 5-year contract for $55,000 compared to $85,000, which was the current contract.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.
Yep, couple questions real quick. I know it's about 30-some thousand dollars less a year than a previous contract. And I guess, Sean, the issue was we didn't get nobody bid for food trucks?
So we advertised, it was a very open RFP. We offered the opportunity for people to bid food trucks or the concession stand or both. And this is the one proposal that we did receive. I know Will had done some work, and I know Will's on the line, but the feedback he was getting from the mobile food concessions is that they would not be able to commit at a level that would support the beach for the entire summer.
Okay.
That was the biggest issue. In talking with the fire and water concession, I think some of the issues that are here, they have a significant investment they need to make in equipment and refreshing the space that they would work out of. There's also, a very high labor cost right now, trying to find people to work in a kitchen environment. So they're looking at that. And then I think from just a risk management standpoint, while we're at the beginning of recovery from COVID, they have to factor that into their pricing over the 5-year period. So that's where we see that dollar value drop a little bit. The one thing I've talked about internally with the staff, we did have, I think they're trying to provide a quality food product. We've dealt with Ben, who's one of the owners in the past, and I think there's a certain quality that he brought to the concession stand when he was there. And it's something that they would try to bring back another time. And if we try to crank that rent number up to that 80,000 again, I think we see, and not recognize the risk, not recognize the other operating cost. The thing that suffers is the quality of food. So I believe they're on the phone tonight. They may want to make a couple comments to you.
I'm not sure we need that.
That's fine.
Unless councils have questions of him. What I would say is that, I'm not sure I would want to tie into a 5-year contract. Unless the council wants to, if you feel comfortable with that 55,000, and you're good with the food, then fine. It's just 5 years so,
Mr. President?
yes.
I don't know if you can see the icons that with the hand raised or not. So I agree. My question to Mr. Brown was the RFP for a 5-year contract, or did this vendor simply put it in those terms of a 5-year contract?
Mark, can you answer that question?
Yes, the RFP did include the 5-year contract. That
So
was
it-
on the town side, matching the prior 5 contracts throughout history. It's been a 5-year contract.
So are we free to say to the vendor, and we may not be legally, I just don't know, as Councilor Roderick sort of suggested, we're good for 2 or 3 years, but then we need to look at it because the environment is so volatile.
Yeah, it is per year 55,000. I mean, I would leave that to the solicitor for his opinion.
I'm having a hard time hearing him.
I didn't hear what Mark said.
We did go out for 5 years, but I would leave it up to the solicitor to see if you wanted to award it as to fewer years than 5.
Well, I think if we're going to negotiate with the vendor, the space isn't here.
I agree.
I think the council would direct the administration to go back and sit with the vendor. We would have to understand what the goals of sitting down with the vendor are, and then come back with another proposal if that's what the council desires. Again, I think one of the things they're looking at is the investment they need to make up front to get going. And then also looking at, if you figure what the upcoming beach season will be, if there's, you have the risk of whether there's a COVID event or not. That's yet to be seen, but there is a potential risk that they're taking on with a 5-year agreement, just as we're taking on. So the risk to us is that the value of that contract is greater in 2025, or it's greater than $275,000 over the 5-year period, but it may or may not be, so.
Yeah, my only concern, Sean, is that this bid went out before they announced that the beach is going to be at full capacity. So, I'm okay with the 2 or 3 years, but I mean, 5 years at that rate, that's a steal.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Ms. Vice President.
Thank you. My comment would be that, I'll liken it to cutting grass. I'm going to give a price, by walking around the property and trying to see how long I think it's going to take me. Well, by the end of that year, I know I'm going to be more efficient and I will know the problem. So I'm going to make more money. So I'm also hesitant to put the same number on it for 5 years. I would feel more comfortable with a couple of years and give us a chance to renegotiate. I don't know how you write that in, but see what he says, because we have to be happy with the product that he's providing, and he has to see how he's doing money wise. So we just talk about it again. I want to do 5.
Okay. Council Sanos.
I agree with Mr. Welch. I'd like to see what he can provide. Give him 2 years. See how his menu, how people go for the menu. He's got some good stuff in here. Will people like it? I say do 2 years. And after 2 years, we negotiate again and go from there. That's my own personal opinion.
Mr. President,
Yes, ma'am.
question for Mr. Brown. What were the operating expenses or investment that had to be made? Was this something to do with the down at the concession stand itself, Mr. Brown, or could you be more specific?
They would need to purchase and install cooking equipment. So friolators, grills, refrigerators, freezers, that type of equipment.
Will they own those, or, through the time that they're there and then they would be removed when they
Correct.
leave?
It's their equipment.
So maybe make it worth the trouble, go 3 years and,
I would suggest that rather than trying to
Yeah,
negotiate
we
this
should
via
negotiate
Zoom,
here.
We can go back and sit with the vendor, and I think overall, the council desires to see a 3-year agreement with some sort of, ability to revisit the agreement in the 4th and 5th year. So
Yep.
I will sit down with them and come back at the next meeting with an update.
Mr. President?
Yes, ma'am.
One quick statement. I think we should also take into consideration that they are going to do a complete renovation inside that building. They're bringing their own, as you mentioned, their own equipment. So we got to consider that. What are they giving us free? And look at that. Negotiate on those kind of terms.
Mhm.
Okay, that's all I got to say.
Okay, so we're good on this? Okay, great.
I just have one question, Mr. President.
Yes.
I was just looking through it, they've got a lot of good references in here as well, so I'm sure we probably reached out to some of these. I mean, they got a contract with Narragansett Town Beach from 2018 to current, and the contract amount was $675,000. So, I mean, if we look at what, I'm sure we're going through these numbers and looking at them, but again, I'm in agreement. I think this bid came in before the beach is going to open up 100%. So I'm sure that's good news for them. And I think that I like the idea of the 2-year contract.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we got about 5 or 8 minutes left. Sean
Mr.
is,
President, I'm sorry, but Councilor Toronto said 2-year contract? I thought that Mr. Brown was going forward with 3.
we're not going to negotiate. He's going to go back and talk to the vendor and then come back to us.
Yeah, if Sean feels 3 is the right number, then I'm good with that. Whatever Sean
Yeah.
feels is right.
Whatever works. He'll come back to us with what he what resolution, hopefully, and then we'll vote on it again. Okay.
I'd like to see the lobster salad sandwiches. Look pretty good.
Only if you're buying them. All right.
There's no price on them.
So let's move on. Sean, is the 31, 32, and 33 pressing time-wise?
No.
No? Can we motion to continue those?
Second?
Okay. Everybody good with that? Motion to second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Mr. President, do we need to continue or do it just skip number 30, the beach concessions resolution?
We don't have,
So we just skip it? We don't have to continue it?
yeah, we're not doing anything with it.
Okay.
Okay. We're not going to have enough time to talk about 34. So,
Wait, why?
we have 5 minutes.
2:35.
I know,
Oh,
but the only question that we had.
34 rather.
34 is the enforcement officer.
Yeah.
Okay, but the only question that we had when we talked about this at the last meeting is whether or not the town administrator would recommend a full-time employee. That's not a lot of discussion.
oh, I think there was more to be discussed. We just decided that the administrator wasn't there per his memo to discuss. So there was more questions, I think. I know I had more.
Okay. So what's the pleasure here? You want to continue?
I
Yeah.
think appropriate if.
Okay,
So,
all right. So we'll continue 35, 34 rather. Okay. Motion to continue.
Second?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Yeah.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Number 35, communication of tax assessment reference to collection, cancellation for taxes for certain Middletown residents.
Motion to receive said communication.
Second?
We have a motion, a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any discussion?
No.
Number 36, resolution of the council in reference to cancellation of taxes for certain Middletown residents.
Motion to pass said resolution.
Second?
We have a motion, a second, to pass said resolution. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Number 37.
9-month, number 37, memorandum of finance director in reference to financial report, 9 months ended March 31st, 2021.
Motion to receive said memorandum and report.
Second?
We have a motion, a second to receive. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Boards and committees. Number 38, email communication of Council Logan, reference to resignation from Open Space and Fields Committee.
Motion to receive said resignation.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to receive as said resignation with regret. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Number 39, appointment of one member to the Affordable Housing Committee, newly established committee.
Mr. President,
Yes, ma'am.
given the time and given that most of the boards and committee applications were not filling the vacancies, I'd like to make a motion that we re-advertise and then continue these items, the rest of the board and committee items.
We can appoint and then she's going to re-advertise anyway.
Okay.
No,
I know.
we have people that applied.
They apply.
I mean, we can fill certain vacancies and then she's going to re-advertise anyway.
I just think that way we'd have a bigger pool of applications for the positions.
Not no.
I think that I understand what you're saying. But these people met the timelines. They got their application in. They did their due diligence. I think we need to do
Okay.
ours.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay.
It's the pleasure of the council, just a suggestion.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
just on the Affordable Housing Committee, I know we've had discussion in regards to, we have 3 different committees now, all focused on affordable living. I think there was discussion that we wanted to try to make it one now, just for affordable living. Is that something that should be addressed here before we start assigning people, or are we going to stick with 3 committees?
I personally think there should be one committee.
I would
if you
agree.
want to- I think that's a great point you bring up before we start appointing. And, I'm going to talk on the other side of my mouth about due diligence, and she did apply. However, it's a great point you bring up. We have 3 different housing committees and it really needs to be one. But, I see nothing wrong with appointing her to the committee, and then she can be part of that committee, I guess.
And Mr. President?
Yes.
The other Affordable Housing Committee, which is later on down the agenda, also only had one applicant. So they could be appointed and then the committees could be combined
Yep,
afterwards.
I agree. Mrs. Santos.
I make a motion to appoint Elizabeth Morsanti of 66 Phillips Road, number D.
Okay. We have a motion to appoint Elizabeth Moranci to the Affordable Housing Committee.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Number 40, appointment of one member to the Conservation Commission for a term expiring July 2023.
Motion to appoint Philip Robinson of 1 South Drive.
We have a motion and a second to appoint Philip Robertson to the Conservation Commission for a term expiring July 2023. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, aye. Number 41, appointment of 5 members to the Juvenile Hearing Board, 3 regular members, terms expiring April 2024, and 2 members as auxiliary members, terms expiring April 2024.
Motion to appoint to the Juvenile Hearing Board, John Turlisner and Matthew Sams as members, and Stephen Rodriguez, Jen Huber, and Audrey McLeod Pfeiffer as auxiliary members, all with terms that expire April 2024.
Okay,
Did she name all five of them?
yes.
Okay,
Do we have a second?
second.
Okay, any discussion? Council-
I just have
Councilor
one
Welch.
question. Are we sure that the regular and auxiliary members are correctly identified?
I don't think you did that.
So Terry, are you suggesting we appoint
The
John
motion
to listener and Matthew Sams to
as members to the Juvenile Hearing Board, and Stephen Rodriguez, Jen Huber, and Audrey McLeod Pfeiffer as auxiliary members?
there's three regular members and 2 auxiliary members.
Opposed?
No, we haven't taken a vote yet. So Terry, we have,
Oh.
there's 3 regular members and 2 auxiliary members.
Oh, I see. Okay. So may I amend my motion?
You can withdraw it and then amend it, or just amend it.
Okay, I'd like to amend it. My apologies, based on the resumes. I'd like to appoint, a motion to appoint for the Juvenile Hearing Board, John Turlisner, Matthew Sams, and Jen Huber as members, and Stephen Rodriguez and Audrey McLeod Pfeiffer as auxiliary members, all with terms expiring April 2024.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay,
Mr. President,
yes, ma'am.
I'd like to appoint.
No, we have, okay.
But I need to know.
Okay, let's just slow down here.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just me.
It's me.
So we have a motion and a second to appoint,
Who are the reappointments?
the reappointments are right here. There's Stephen and John, and then there's Jen, Audrey, and Matthew who applied.
Okay, so can we just, if we're going to appoint them, can't we just do the reappointments first and then do the other 3? I mean, running it all together.
Yeah.
Aside from the fact that the acoustics in this room are terrible.
They are, the acoustics in this room are terrible. So I'm not sure it matters. Council Welch?
Mike, what I'm trying to figure out here is that who are so Steve Rodriguez and John Turlisner are up for reappointment. Are
Correct.
they members or auxiliary members?
They're members.
They're members.
Okay, so is that what your motion was, Terry, that those 2 are members, or did you change that up?
I did change that up based on the resumes and my knowledge.
Okay. So right now, currently, we have a motion to appoint John to listener, which would be a reappointment,
Mhm.
and Jen Huber and Matthew Sams
Yes,
as full-time members. And
correct.
your auxiliary members would be Stephen and Audrey. And Stephen is no relation to me, by the way. Spelled exactly the same, but just for the record, no relation. Okay, so we have a motion, a second on that. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Okay. So Dennis, are you in favor or opposed? I can't, the
In
time
favor.
delay.
Sorry,
Okay,
thumbs up.
so all in favor? Okay. Tom, did you vote?
Yes, no.
You opposed? Okay, I opposed too. Okay. You want to, Mrs. Santos?
Okay. For reappointment, Stephen Rodriguez, John Turlisner, reappointments, okay? And add to that Jen Huber. And then the other 2 will be auxiliary members. Those are my 2.
Stop with the first 3.
Yes, stop with the first 3.
Okay, so the recommendation is to make the appointments to the full-time, this shouldn't be this hard, to the auxiliary member, to the full-time members. The motion is to appoint Stephen Rodriguez, John Turlisner, and Jen Huber to the Juvenile Hearing Board, 3 regular members, terms expire in April 2024.
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Discussion?
Yes, ma'am. Discussion.
So I would like to know the support for placing the volunteers in your motion, Mrs. Santos?
I'm not answering you because you never answered my email that I wrote to you.
Okay, all right, let's, if she
Seriously?
doesn't, if she doesn't want to respond, she doesn't have to. And you know, Terry, I'm not sure it's right that we continue to call out council members. If you feel to do that, that's okay. That's your preference. But
Well, actually, I think
certainly
it's
I certainly don't like it. I don't question. We're not here to question each other on why we think what our opinions are.
well, on the contrary, a motion was made. I think that the public deserves to know the basis of the motion. If there's fair support for a motion, that it should be no problem. I'm looking at Matthew Sams, who's a correctional officer and, you know, works directly in the industry, and think that he would have a lot to add to.
And that's fine. That's your opinion. There's nothing wrong with your opinion. We all respect it. And some may agree or disagree, and we all disagree with each other at times. But the call councils are out. That needs to stop.
I'm not calling anybody out, with all due respect, Mr. President. I'm asking for support of a motion. It's no different than asking for data points for a docket item. You should be able to support your motion.
Okay.
Okay, if you can't support it, how am I going to vote in favor of it?
Okay. Well,
Okay.
that's their prerogative to either respond or not respond, and they choose not to respond. Okay.
I don't think it is okay.
Okay. Thank you, Terry. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Okay. Motion for auxiliary members. Motion to appoint Audrey Pfeiffer and Matthew Sams as auxiliary members, terms expiring April 2024.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Number 42, appointment of one member to the Middletown Economic Development Advisory Committee for a term expiring January 2024.
Motion to appoint Valerie Gelb for the Middletown Economic Development Committee for a
Okay.
term that expires 2024.
Terry, hang on one second. Teresa had the floor first. She beat you to it.
Okay.
Mr. President, I'd like to nominate Henry Lombardi to this committee,
Okay.
Middletown Economic Development Advisory.
Okay. Are there any further nominations?
I'd like to nominate Valerie Gelb for the Middletown Economic Development Committee for a term that expires January 2024. I was sorry to see Mr. Amert withdraw. Great to have 4 candidates for one position. And I want everyone to know that they are qualified. And I appointed Ms. Gelb because based on the skill set she presented, she sent out her resume to everybody. She has extensive business experience and a global resume. It should be a great asset and volunteer for Middletown. We're very fortunate.
Thank you. Okay.
Mr.
So
President.
we'll take them as we got them. Yes, sir.
President.
Yes, Mr. Toronto.
So I'd just like to put support in for Valerie as well. She has a stellar resume, and I've been on MEDAC for several years, and I think that talent is needed. No disrespect to Mr. Lombardi, but Valerie's background is very positive business. She's a CEO. She's done business worldwide. She's very associated with a number of organizations. I think she'd be a true asset for this group, and that's the type of resources we need on this group at this time. So I'm going to support her.
Okay. Okay, so we have Henry up first. We have a motion to second to appoint Henry Lombardi. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay. I'm waiting for the delay. There it is. Okay, we have a motion and a second to support Valerie Gelb. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. All right.
We can't see what happened.
It's 5-2
For
for Valerie.
For Valerie.
Okay, thank you.
You need to sharpen those lenses, Toronto.
Well, we
Okay,
got a
so
delay and
what's
can't
the
see who's
pleasure of the
voting, who's
council? It's
voting.
20 of. Do you want to continue?
Let's finish.
You want to finish?
If,
Okay.
Yeah.
You want to finish, Mr. Santos?
Yes.
Okay, let's go. 43, appointment of one member to the Open Space and Fields Committee, one vacancy, term expiring November 2023, and two vacancies to complete terms expiring November 2021.
I nominate Aaron, oh, I'm sorry. I'd like to nominate Aaron Gouch for the Open Space and Fields Committee for a term expiring November 2023.
Second. We have a motion is second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Number 44, appointment of one member to the Pension Trust Fund Committee for a term expiring February 2024.
Make a motion to appoint Andrew Riley to the Pension Trust Fund Committee for a term expiring February 2024.
Okay. We have a motion is second to appoint Andrew Riley to the Pension Trust Fund Committee. And a second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Number 45, appointment of one member to the Personnel Review Board. It's a bipartisan board, Democrat or Republican representative, two vacancies, terms expiring June 2024.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I nominate Manuel M. Marks, 22 Pasture Farm Drive, reappointment to the as a Democratic representative.
For a term expiring June 2024.
Correct.
Okay. I'll second that. We have a motion is second. Any further appointments? I think he's the only one that applied. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Appointment of one member to the Senior Affordable Housing Committee, newly established committee.
No, not, it did say senior. It says, you said senior, but it's just affordable.
It says
Mine says
Senior
senior.
Affordable.
Where does it say senior affordable?
Number
Senior
46.
Affordable.
Oh, all right, it's just above,
Yep.
but not in the writing.
Okay. I felt like I was in class again.
I'm sorry.
All right.
I'm sorry, but
Okay.
I'm reading the sentence and it's not in the sentence.
Okay. Motion to appoint Alicia Hicks to the Senior Affordable Housing Committee.
Second.
We have a motion is second to appoint Alicia. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Number 47, appointment of one member to the Senior Citizen Board of Director. We have one vacancy, term expiring January 2024, and one vacancy to complete a term expiring January 2022.
Mr. President,
Yes, ma'am.
I nominate Ronald.
I don't think you can,
Why?
because he's not a member of the Senior Center.
He's not?
No.
Oh.
So I think we have to re-advertise.
You sure?
I'm positive.
Well, you got his birth record?
I'm just reading what we have from the Senior Director.
I'm only kidding.
I have no problem putting him on if he joins that's part of the,
I'm only kidding.
okay.
Let's move
No
on.
problem putting Ron on. I think it'd be a great addition. It's just he has to be a member of a standing member of the
Center.
Senior Center.
Senior Center.
Okay, so motion to re-advertise.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Number 47, appointment of 4 members to the Zoning Board of Review. One vacancy, regular member term expiring April 2026. One vacancy, first alternate, term expiring April 2022. One vacancy, second alternate, term expiring April 2022. And one vacancy, third alternate, term expiring April 2022.
I'd like to make a motion.
Council, I got to finish reading it.
So sorry.
That's okay. Council may waive the requirement for reappointments. All new applicants shall be interviewed prior to appointment.
Motion to appoint Adam Souza as a regular member of the zoning board for a term expiring April 2026, and to appoint Olin Gambrell and Christopher Souza as alternates with a one-year term expiring April 2022.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. So we have a motion to second, but discussion.
Mr.
Do-
President, we have first alternates, second alternates, and third alternates. So could we specify in the motion who she's suggesting
So
for each of those?
she did not specify. She said Adam is a regular member. And she just said, Terry, would you like to clarify that motion?
Certainly, it can go in order. First and second alternates, Olin and Chris Souza in that order, if that makes it easier. In discussion.
Okay. I do have a question. Do we want to interview these people, these candidates? That's the other thing.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Discussion,
Zoning
further
board's quite
discussion?
important. I think it's important that we interview those candidates.
Okay. The consensus up here is there's a lot of head shaking. Yes. Councilor Flynn.
So I was wondering if in order that because we still have one more position to fill. I don't know if we want to, when we advertise, get that position filled and then do the interviews all at once.
We can do that if you want, because the council does, it seems like the consensus wants to interview the candidates. We okay with that? I know I'm changing my tune from earlier, but now this is based on interviews. So, okay. Everybody okay with that?
Mhm.
Okay. So do you want to withdraw your motions? Motion?
So we are going to re-advertise, so the council can schedule interviews with for all at once.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
sounds reasonable.
Okay. Motion to withdraw your motion.
Withdraw my motion.
Thank you, ma'am. Second. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Here's what we've been waiting for. Motion to adjourn. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
You also. Take care, everybody.